El motivo es que, como ya os contamos, la Reserva Federal de Atlanta ha estimado una contracción importante de la economía estadounidense. ¿Y cuál es la receta tradicional para luchar contra las contracciones económicas? Efectivamente, bajar los tipos de interés. Y claro, menos tipos de interés vuelven la deuda americana menos atractiva, así que los inversores, incluidos otros países, buscan otras alternativas. ¿Y qué otras alternativas están buscando? Pues ya os lo hemos contado, el oro.
Lo que sí que tengo muy claro es que lo que ha hecho subir al oro no ha cambiado con respecto a lo que podría volver a hacerlo subir. ¿Y qué es lo que ha hecho subir al oro y que podría volver a hacerlo subir? Pues la formación de tipos de interés reales negativos, o mejor dicho, cómo vas a financiar las promesas de mejor calidad de vida con respecto a tus ciudadanos que tienes que darle por otro lado. Es decir, si tú te coges el programa de Donald Trump, bueno, tú lo sabes, Óscar, la reducción de impuestos son aproximadamente 10 billones de dólares en las dos legislaturas. ¿Cómo dices que vas a financiar eso? ¿Con aranceles? Si pones un 10% a todos los aranceles que importa Estados Unidos, son 300.000 millones de dólares anuales. Por 8, 2,5, entre 2,5 y 3. 10 menos 3, te quedan 7. ¿Cómo coño financias esos 7? O sea, solamente tienes una opción. Si has bajado los impuestos, para financiar eso tienes que recortar el gasto. Y no me vale recortar el gasto diciendo, como dice Donald Trump, Departamento de Eficiencia, no sé qué tal igual, el DOGE, o es que le vamos a quitar esto a estos de aquí. No, oiga, métase usted con las pensiones, métase con la sanidad, métase con los intereses de la deuda, porque son las tres partidas que suman, el resto es marginal, métase con defensa, es decir, donde Estados Unidos no va a recortar, porque no hay ningún presidente que se haga el harakiri de esa manera, salvo que el ciclo te obliga a hacerlo, ¿no?
El oro se ha revalorizado alrededor de un 30% en el último año, pero buena parte de esta revalorización ha ocurrido en horas en las que los mercados americanos están cerrados. Vamos, que no son los estadounidenses los que están comprando oro, sino el resto de países. Aunque por si esto fuera poco, todavía hay un mecanismo más que hace que la deuda pública americana sea menos atractiva, el quantitative tightening. Antes de explicar en qué consiste el quantitative tightening, déjame explicarte en qué consiste justo lo contrario, el quantitative easing. Sin entrar en muchos detalles, el quantitative easing consiste en que la Reserva Federal le da la maquinita de imprimir billetes para comprar activos a los bancos, como deuda pública o hipotecas. La idea es que los bancos, al recibir dinero fresco a cambio de sus activos, pues empezarán a conceder préstamos con algo más de alegría y así se reactivaría la economía. Además, como estos billetes recién salidos de la impresora en teoría no entran directamente a la economía a través de gasto público, no aumenta la inflación, o al menos eso es lo que dice la teoría. Pues bien, esto es lo que se hizo en la crisis del 2008 y también durante el COVID. No obstante, en economía no existen los almuerzos gratuitos y como ya vimos precisamente tras el COVID, la impresora, el quantitative easing, disparó la inflación. Así que, para solucionar el problema, la Reserva Federal inició el proceso contrario, el proceso que dura hasta el día de hoy, el quantitative tightening. Esto es justo lo contrario, consiste en retirar dinero de la economía vendiendo activos como deuda pública a los bancos comerciales. Pues bien, justo en esas estamos ahora. La Fed ya se ha deshecho de 800.000 millones de dólares en letras del Tesoro. Según una encuesta entre economistas, hay un consenso muy fuerte en que esto reduce la demanda global de letras del Tesoro. Y esto se traduce en una de las dos siguientes cosas. O bien sube el interés de la deuda para que ésta sea más atractiva y así todo el mundo invierta en ella, o bien aumenta la inflación. Oferta y demanda. Pero por si esto fuera poco, el Banco Central de los Estados Unidos no es el único que está perdiendo apetito por sus letras del Tesoro. Lo cierto es que Europa tampoco está ayudando.
El BCE cierra 2024 con las mayores pérdidas de su historia, 7.900 millones de euros.
Si la Reserva Federal no compra deuda estadounidense, otros bancos centrales del resto del mundo podrían intentar compensarlo. Pero como acabáis de oír, el Banco Central Europeo cerró el año con pérdidas históricas. Además, el Banco Central Europeo también está haciendo un quantitative tightening. Vamos, que entre una cosa y la otra no están para comprar deuda estadounidense. Es cierto que las reservas extranjeras del BCE, como los dólares y otros instrumentos de deuda, aumentaron en un 15% en 2024. Pero esto más bien tiene otra explicación, que curiosamente también está en el oro. El oro también cuenta como reservas extranjeras y explica 10 de los 15.000 millones de reservas extra que acumuló el Banco Central Europeo durante el año pasado. Pero ojo, esto no se debe a que esté comprando oro como un loco, como sí que está haciendo el Banco Central de China. El principal motivo es simplemente que el oro que ya tenían se ha revalorizado. Por lo que en resumen, podríamos decir que hay tres grandes motivos que explican que las reservas extranjeras de dólares estén cayendo en todo el mundo. El primero es que países como China quieren dejar de depender tanto de Estados Unidos, sobre todo por motivos geopolíticos, a lo que con Trump se podrían sumar aliados históricos. El segundo motivo es culpa de la situación económica de Estados Unidos. Las letras del Tesoro se han vuelto menos rentables para el resto del mundo. Y el tercer motivo es que varios países, y en especial Europa, pues tampoco están comprando más letras. Ahora bien, ¿realmente todo esto llegará a ser tan grave como para poder provocar una desdolarización mundial? A ver, es muy fácil decir que no quieres depender del dólar y que vas a diversificar, pero seamos sinceros, a día de hoy el dólar es la sangre del sistema financiero global y no hay nada que pueda sustituirlo al 100%. Esto explica gráficos como el que estáis viendo en pantalla. A primera vista, China se está desprendiendo de sus activos americanos, pero existen sospechas muy bien fundadas de que al mismo tiempo está aumentando sus tenencias de dólares y deuda americana por medio de otros países. Países como Bélgica, en los que China ha aumentado su tenencia de activos por 160.000 millones de dólares. Pero no solo hablamos de Bélgica. Luxemburgo, por ejemplo, ha aumentado sus tenencias de deuda americana de menos de 100.000 millones a casi 500 en la última década. Algo muy parecido a lo que también está sucediendo en Islas Caimán. Y ojo, con esto no queremos decir que China no intente depender menos de los Estados Unidos. Si toda la caída en sus reservas extranjeras se explicara porque tiene cuentas pantalla en terceros países, pues no estaría comprando tanto oro como sí que está comprando. Lo que queremos decir más bien es que el impacto de este ataque de Xi Jinping a Donald Trump, pues ¿qué queréis que os diga? No es el golpe mortal que mucha gente está vendiendo, o al menos a día de hoy, porque nadie sabe lo que puede ocurrir en el futuro. Ahora bien, pues aquí no nos gusta ser apocalípticos, aunque los políticos no lo pongan nada fácil. Es cierto que la Fed se está deshaciendo de sus letras del tesoro, pero su objetivo último es que formen un mayor porcentaje de su balance. Por eso mismo está previsto que empiece a comprar más a partir del tercer trimestre, aun cuando reduzca al mismo tiempo otros activos. Y por su parte, el Banco Central Europeo espera tener pérdidas este año también, pero muchas menos. Además, Estados Unidos no parece estar teniendo muchos problemas para colocar su nueva deuda. Todavía está por ver qué ocurrirá con los tipos de interés. Si la economía yanqui empieza a ralentizarse, quizá baje los tipos aún más rápido, pero la inflación también está más alta de lo que le gustaría a Jerome Powell. Así que probablemente veamos un pique de gallos entre el presidente de la Fed y el presidente de los Estados Unidos. Así que en resumen, nadie sabe qué ocurrirá en el futuro. Hay argumentos tanto a favor como en contra de que la tendencia a reducir reservas extranjeras de dólares vaya a aumentar o no vaya a hacerlo. Lo que sí está claro es que si la tensión geopolítica con China aumenta, Xi Jinping no querrá tener sus ahorros guardados en una cuenta que se pueda congelar en cualquier momento. Dicho esto, el principal factor a tener en cuenta pues no es China, sino Estados Unidos. Es Trump quien tiene que garantizar que la deuda pública americana sea un buen activo para el resto del mundo y no al revés. Quiero dar las gracias a Gustavo Martínez por participar en este vídeo y también quiero recordarte que si quieres aprender a invertir en materias primas como el oro o aprender a invertir en general, el mejor lugar para hacerlo es la formación que hemos preparado y de la que puedes informarte mejor con el código QR que ves en pantalla o con el enlace de la descripción. Pero llegados hasta aquí, el turno es para vosotros. ¿Conseguirán Donald Trump y la Reserva Federal hacer la deuda americana great again? ¿Realmente China puede permitirse sustituir sus tenencias de dólares? ¿Qué creéis que pasará con el precio del oro en el largo plazo? Podéis dejarme vuestra respuesta en los comentarios y como siempre no olvidéis que aquí en Visual Economics sacamos vídeos nuevos todas las semanas, así que suscribiros a este canal y dadle a la campanita para no perderos ninguna de nuestras actualizaciones. Si os ha gustado este vídeo, dadle a like y nos vemos en el próximo. Un saludo y hasta pronto.
Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. The gods have isekai'd Robin from Honkai Star Rail into Zenless Zone Zero as Astra Yao. In today's ultimate guide video, you'll learn everything you need to know about Astra Yao. Astra Yao wields the power of Ether and is our first featured S-rank support agent, and she has huge astronomical buffs that make her extraordinary. Yao better believe it! Astra Yao is an incredibly unique agent who enables a completely new quick swap spamming playstyle. This video was filmed on the early access server and is not indicative of the final product. There may be some changes on release, so be sure to check the comments down below to see if there are any. In this video, we'll go over her kit, her drives and stats, Wenjins, Mindscapes, teams, which will include some bangers as well, a showcase, and of course my opinion at the end. Starting with her kit, just use her special a single time. That's it, that's the end of the tutorial. You think I'm exaggerating, but for most situations, this is all you need to do in a fight. But just for fun, let's break down why this is the case. By pressing the special button, Astra Yao enters her idyllic cadenza state, aka her singing state. When Astra Yao is in idyllic cadenza state, you can't move her in the traditional way, but you can dash around a bit to dodge and reposition. Also, pretty much everything she does while in idyllic cadenza state will activate quick assist. You can exit idyllic cadenza state by holding the dodge button, or holding the basic attack button, or getting hit out of it by an enemy while she's briefly on field. Finally, once you swap to another character, Astra Yao will remain on field in idyllic cadenza state, where she is fortunately invulnerable. Anyway, while she's in idyllic cadenza state, she provides the entire party with up to 20% bonus damage and up to 25% crit damage. She also has these chords, up to 4 of them, with each one actually really just representing 25 energy. Now, whenever you trigger a precise assist, quick assist, chain attack, defensive assist, or evasive assist, so basically all the assists as well as chain attacks, Astra Yao will consume 1 chord, aka 25 energy, and do the following. Spending a chord by doing a precise assist, evasive assist, defensive assist, and chain attack, so everything besides a regular quick assist, will cause Astra Yao to attack the enemy with 1 tremolo and 3 tone clusters. And if you have her additional ability activated, which is by simply having an attacker or anomaly agent on your team, Astra Yao will follow that up with another tremolo and 3 tone clusters. The tremolo's damage counts as EX special damage, which is useful, which we'll discuss later. Now, you might have heard precise assist and wondered what that is. It is when the quick assist icon in the bottom right is a bright blue and quite shiny instead of the regular red quick assist prompt. And the quick assists activated by Astra Yao's abilities will start as a shiny blue precise assist, and after a second or so turn into a regular red quick assist. The only real difference between the two is that Astra Yao will perform a tremolo plus 3 tone clusters twice with a precise assist instead of just a single tremolo with the regular quick assist. For most situations, this doesn't matter too much, but generally you'll probably be doing precise assists, and for a couple of Wenjins it does matter, so we'll get into that later. Not only that, but after Astra Yao spends a chord via any assist or chain attack, she will activate her core skill, which provides herself and the ally being swapped on with up to a 1200 attack buff. At max core skill level, the buff is 35% of her pre-battle attack stat. So in order to max this 1200 attack buff out, Astra Yao will need 3429 attack. This buff is based on her attack stat on her stat page before loading into the fight. This buff has an icon indicating its duration under the character's health bar, and this buff lasts for a whopping 20 seconds, and repeated triggers can extend this buff to a colossal 30 seconds, making this an incredibly powerful and relatively easy buff to maintain across your team. Speaking of which, while Astra Yao is in idyllic cadenza state, you're basically just playing with 2 characters now, as those 2 characters will keep triggering quick assists to each other, skipping Astra Yao as a quick assistable to character. Now, how are these additional quick assists triggered? By simply hitting an enemy with any attack with the controlled character on field, you can activate quick assist with a 3-second cooldown. Or by hitting an enemy with a heavy attack, which as a reminder is generally an attack that can trigger stun, you can activate quick assist with a 1-second cooldown for heavy attacks. Next we have her chain attack, which is mainly useful for generating a decent amount of decibels, and don't worry, her chain attack also puts her in idyllic cadenza state. And lastly we have her ultimate, which does the following: puts her in idyllic cadenza state, triggers a quick assist, heals for up to 2950 damage, and converts the 2 next quick assists into chain attack. attacks. In total, a Mindscape Zero Astra provides 20% bonus damage, 25% crit damage, up to 1,200 attack from her core passive, 24% bonus damage from the Astral Voice drive set, and around 20% bonus damage or some mega attack via her W engine choice, the ability to spam quick assists like no other, up to 2,950 healing from her ultimate, and 2 quick assists converted to chain attacks also from her ultimate. So yeah, that's basically her entire kit. She's a pretty simple character because you pretty much just need to simply press E a single time, which can even be done before the fight, and that's it. So Astra Yao literally has no combo game worth talking about, at least that I'm aware of, so let's go through some additional tips and tricks. If you feel like you want even more quick assists when you don't have a quick assist prompt active, you can swap to Astra Yao, who will still be in idyllic cadenza state, and she will promptly trigger a quick assist to the next character. This is fast, can be done even when Astra Yao has no cords, aka less than 25 energy, or you can even use this to save energy on Astra Yao by skipping the quick assist on the other character. In a similar vein, you can double dip Astra Yao's ultimates, free 2 chain attacks by using her ultimate, swapping onto your DPS character for that free chain attack, then waiting for the quick assist prompt to fully go away, which sometimes can take a while, and then manually swap Astra Yao on to trigger a quick assist for your DPS for a second free chain attack. Alright, her hold basic attack has a tiny bit of grouping, but I personally don't find it worth using since it also doesn't put her in idyllic cadenza state, and I've also personally not really found a use for her hold special either, since it's just a slower version of a regular special and the damage she does with it isn't particularly impactful. But if you guys find a use for these two things, let me know down below. Fortunately, Astra Yao is actually a somewhat simple character to build, despite how complicated this chart might look. Starting off, there is a clear winner for her best drive set, the Astral Voice. Frankly, at the moment, there is essentially no other set to consider for Astra Yao. This thing gives 10% attack and up to 24% bonus damage, 8% per quick assist, which obviously Astra Yao can max out very quickly. Now, as we've established earlier, Astra Yao needs 3,429 attack or more to maximize her 1,200 attack buff from her core skill. This means that we can just go with attack percent in both slots 4 and 5 without even needing to consider any other main stats because frankly her damage just isn't good. For her 2-piece drive set option, I recommend the 2-piece Swing Jazz for the 20% energy regen or the 2-piece Hormone Punk for the 10% attack. And for her slot 6, you'll want either attack percent or energy regen for the main stat. Now in this chart, we have the chord time column, which just indicates how long it takes Astra Yao to gain 25 energy. But also, it's Astra important to mention that it's not a big deal if you're missing a bit of her core ability's attack buff, because 50 to 100 attack probably won't be the difference between you clearing and you not clearing. But this chart shows how much of an attack buff you can expect with the recommended amount of attack percent rolls. I know getting 10 attack percent rolls is difficult, especially on just 3 drives, so that's why it's in red, but generally speaking for her non-signature Wenjin, you'll want more attack percent rolls to maximize her attack buff. Anyway, the point is, mix and match 2-piece Hormone Punk, 2-piece Swing Jazz, and slot 6 main stat attack percent or energy regen depending on your needs. As for her Wenjins, this is where things get interesting. Her signature Wenjin, the Elegant Vanity, is overall her best option, providing a bunch of energy and the fastest chord time on this list. It also provides 20% bonus damage, which is a great and useful buff, and it's the easiest to build around only needing 5 attack percent substat rolls, assuming you have at least 4 flat attack rolls throughout your drives to reach 3,429 attack and thus the max 1,200 attack buff. However, one of her fairly free-to-play friendly options is Sokaku's signature Wenjin, the Bashful Demon, which is gacha only, although it's quite common in the gacha. At upgrade 5, it performs very similarly to her signature Wenjin, which is frankly quite incredible. Thanks to Astra Yao's tremolos counting as EX special damage, you have phenomenal uptime on this Wenjin's buff. Looking at both these charts, with the bottom one being an in-game damage comparison chart, we can see that the final hit of Miyabi's Shimotsuki Slash did nearly the same amount of damage between her signature Wenjin, the Bashful Demon, and the Kaboom the Cannon. So yeah, add another free-to-play friendly Wenjin, the Kaboom the Cannon, to this list. Granted, Kaboom the Cannon's buff is shorter and you'll have worse uptime on it, so do keep that in mind, but you can definitely play around it and get its buff up when it matters. Still, most people have at least either the Bashful Demon or the Kaboom the Cannon with a few upgrades on them, making them incredible free-to-play friendly options. Now, I did want to talk about the Vault, whose buff unfortunately only lasts for 4.7 seconds due to the second tremolo hitting at the 1.7 second mark. And in this in-game damage comparison chart, we can see that the buff fell off before Miyabi could finish her Shimatsuki slash. So this isn't actually really accurately reflecting how much it buffed Miyabi's damage here, but it's definitely not for the full duration of her Shimatsuki slash. In theory, it should be decently usable if you save your quick assist for when you need them, like when the boss is stunned. Now, the Weeping Cradle is in a similar boat, except for its duration is based on any hits instead of just an EX special hitting, thus making its duration 1.1 seconds longer than the Vault's duration, making it a bit better in terms of damage amplification. And interestingly, its buff actually lasts long enough to buff the final portion of Miyabi's Shimatsuki slash. Although keep in mind that Astra Yao does not count as being off field, so the energy regen portion of the Weeping Cradle doesn't actually work for her. Still, its high base attack and longer buff duration makes it overall my slightly more preferred option over the Vault, but not by very much. Finally, we have the Battle Pass Wenjin, the Untethered Game Ball, which I'm personally not a big fan of due to its crit rate buff only applying to ether weak enemies. And lastly, there's the free-to-play friendly A Slice of Time, which should noticeably speed up Astra Yao getting her ultimate, which in some situations can make a difference. Although its damage amplification is tied for being the worst with the 3-star Reverb Mark 1, but I bet
通りなのです。運命の人って何？久しぶりに聞いたよ、そんな懐かしい口説き文句。言葉で表現できることには限界があるのです。今のあなたに理解できないとしても、それは普通のこと。すぐにわかるのです。私が何を言わんとしているか。お嬢さん。私を詐欺師だと疑っているのはわかっています。でも、あれは本当のことなんです。あのコレクションは私の夫が残したものです。生活が苦しくて質に入れざるを得ませんでしたが、誰ともわからない人の手に渡ってしまうところをただ見ているのは耐えられないんです。だからどうか、あれを競り落とすのを手伝っていただけませんか？あのコレクションには実は傷がついています。競り落とした後、裏で手続きをする際に運営へ指摘してください。そうすれば出品そのものが無効となり、質屋へと戻っていくでしょう。あなたがお金を払う必要もありません。もちろん手間賃としていくらかお支払いいたします。多くはありませんが、私の用意できるすべてを。だからどうか。ママ、泣かないで。あなたのお話が事実だとして、そのために来たわけではないのです。第一、私と何の関係が？あなたが不幸になろうと、私の知ったことではないのです。お嬢さん、そんな。お金に困っているようには見えないのに、どうしてそこまで冷徹になれるんです？お隣にいらっしゃるお上品そうなご友人も、きっとそう思っていらっしゃいますよね。え？私？そうです。もしよろしければ、お願いを聞いていただけないでしょうか。間もなくオークションが始まるのです。どうやってここに紛れ込んだのかは知らないですけれど、小さい子ともども警備員に突き出されたいのですか？それと、ささやかな忠告をしてあげるのです。オークションは戦場。安易な同情は命取り。そんな風にしていると、今に身ぐるみ剥がされて、すってんてんにされるのです。それと、私はビビアン。お見知りおきいただければ嬉しいのです。
まもなくオークション第1部を開始します。
真とか言ってた割にこっそり福引きに並んでたよね。やっぱあんまお金ないんじゃない？
まさかこんなところでお前と鉢合わせるとはな。今度こそ負けないからな。
よくわかんないけど、とりあえずバイプッシュで。
庶民のくせにこんな派手なことしてきやがるとは。
鮮やかな一手なのです。向こうは初手から縮み上がっているはず。
とっとと諦めた方が身のためだぞ。こいつは絶対に僕が競り落とす。
じゃあもっと頑張らなきゃね。司会者さん 20% 上乗せ。
お前一体どこからそんな多額のディニーを。
妥当な選択ですが、若干無駄遣いの気があるのです。
分かった。不毛な釣り上げ合戦はやめよう。どうやらこの品に興味があるのは僕たちだけのようじゃないか。ここは談合といかないか。
譲歩ならしないから。
取り付く島もないとはこのことだ。
相手に揺さぶりをかけるなら今が好機なのです。
お前の執念も相当だな。こんなチャチなもの僕と争ってまで手に入れたい品なのか。
その通りだよ。この無限と言ってもいいディニーこそ私たちの最大の強みなんだから。司会者さんもっと上げて。
おいおい、この品の妥当な価値はとっくに超えてるぞ。もういい、お前たちに譲ってやる。
ちょっとオーバーですけれど、まあ許容範囲内なのです。何はともあれ落札できてよかったのです。私に言わせればあの品のデザインはいささか前衛的すぎるかと。まあ人の好みにとやかく言う趣味もないのです。結局のところ芸術の最も尊い価値とは人々がそれに注ぐ愛なのですから。
次に控えております品は大変なものでございますよ。ある伝説的な芸術家の遺作でありまして、新エリート全土に2つとないものでございます。この芸術家の経歴もまた特筆すべきなのですが、生前彼は無名でした。その作品が偶然見出され評価されたのは彼が世を去った後でございます。そのため正真正銘彼の作品と呼ばれるものは極めて少なく、どれも大変に貴重なもの。ましてこれが作家人生のピリオドとくればなおさらでございます。さて前置きはこれぐらいにして早速開始いたしましょう。まずは2億ディニーから。
5億まで落札できれば大した損でもない。3億だ。
お兄ちゃん、私の見間違いじゃなかったらだけど、あれビビアンが落札してほしいって頼まれてたやつだよね。
ああ、きっとそうだ。僕たちの予算に余裕があれば代わりに競り落としてあげることもできたけ
10億。
おいおい、いくら遺作とはいえ大した出来でもない作品にいきなり10億というのは。大方どこぞのご令嬢が社会勉強にでも来たんだろうな。自分で稼いだこともない金なんていくら使おうとただの数字だ。
あれビビアンじゃない？オークションは戦場、愛の同情は命というとか言ってたのに、こっそり落札してあげるつもりだったんだ。
まあ別にこっそりでもなんでもないけれどね。ぶっちぎりの最高額を堂々と提示しているわけだから。
おっと、こちらの高貴なお嬢さんは素晴らしい審美眼をお持ちのご様子。早々に驚愕の入札額が飛び出しました。 さあこちらのお嬢さんに挑まれる方はいらっしゃいませんか。将来的に倍の価値となるやもしれませんよ。
やめた方がいいのです。どれだけ高額になろうと今夜私は必ずあれを競り落とします。
おーっとこのお嬢さん自信満々です。さて時間も迫ってまいりました。10億です。皆様いかがですか。我こそはという方はそれでは10億での落札です。さて皆様本オークションはこれにて前半が終了となります。皆様には休憩室にお戻りいただきしばしの休息の後さらに貴重な品々をご覧いただきます。それではまた後半にお会いしましょう。
ここのコーヒーは
何なのです、その目は。口ではあんなこと言ってたけど根は優しいタイプなんだなんて考えていませんよね。
どうしてわかったの？
図星なのです。先に言っておきますが私あの人を助けるつもりなんてさらさらないのです。さっき落札した品も彼女にあげたりはしません。あれは詐欺の常套手段ですから。
詐欺？あの人が詐欺師だっていうの？
いかに自分の境遇が悲惨かを強調しつつ競りを無効にする方法があるとほのめかしてきましたね。あなたは一銭も支払わなくていいなんて言いつつですがそんなルールは存在しないのです。高額で落札したお金は返ってこず手元に残るのはおよそ価値に見合わない品。そうなってしまったら後悔しても時すでに遅しなのです。
とか言いつつ結局あんたは自分で落札しちゃってたよね。
私が惹かれたのはあの芸術家にまつわる物語ですから。芸術品の売買というものは実質的にその品に宿る物語をやり取りしている。そうは思いませんか。私は私が代価を払うに値する物語にお金を払うのです。なんてこれも嘘なのです。あなたは信じてしまったみたいですが。信じちゃってた。もう一度ささやかな忠告をしてあげるのです。目に見えるものだけを信じていてはお話になりません。誰もが皆自分の目的を隠すことに慣れすぎているのです。時には目に見えないものこそが真実だということもあります。次はあの偽善者どもではなく私からの招待状を受け取ってほしいのです。秘密だらけのお友達。またお会いしましょう。なのです。
オークション第2Ladies and gentlemen ようこそお戻りくださいました。続いての品こそ本オークション最大の目玉比類するものなき勇者の街灯でございます。はるか昔真に勇気ある者だけが袖を通すことを許されたというこの一品。さらに驚くべきは襟元にあしらわれた奇妙な宝石でございます。私もこのようなものを見るのは初めてです。何やら怪しげな魔力のようなものを漂わせていますね。
あの宝石みたいなやつ、私たちが探してるあれだよね。
妙だな。あんなに重要なものが無防備な状態で服の一装飾になっているなんて。
仰々しいったらありゃしないのです。
今日は随分と賑わっているようじゃないか。ふさわしいものから場違いなものあまねくこの場に寄せ集めてしまったようだな。
勇者の街灯か。センスのかけらもない名前だ。だが何としても手に入れてやるぞ。レイブンロック家の栄光にかけて。
はい、例のものです。どうやら本物のようですね。あ、見張っておきます。
まさか俺相手にここまで食い下がってくる奴がいるとはな。このまま値の釣り上げを続けたところで意味がない。はっきり言って俺は金なんぞより時間の方が惜しいのでな。そこでだ、正直に言ってみろ。何が欲しい？
一筋縄じゃいかなそう。ここは駆け引きに出るしかないみたい。私はただ勇者になれたらそれでいいの。何それ。
なるほど。実にユニークな願望をお持ちのようだ。
示唆に富んだジョークではございますが、問題を解決するには至らないかと。
勇者の街灯以外にも価値ある品はまだまだ存在する。焦ることはない。より魅力的な品に出会えるかもしれないぞ。
私は別にコレクターでもないし、珍しいものを集めるのが目的でもないの。ただあの服が気に入っただけ。
なるほど。実のところ俺が欲しいのは宝石の方でね。今すぐ手を引いてくれるような服だけはお前にやろう。どうかな。
芳しくありませんね。足をすくわれてしまいました。
欲しいものはどんな手を使ってでも手に入れる。それが我々レイブンロック家のやり方だ。信じられないのならどこへなりと言って聞いて回ればいい。
それは奇遇だね。私も欲しいものは何が何でも手に入れる主義なの。
おう、随分と自信があるようだ。
強く出るべきところで強く出る。その調子でございます。
いいか友よ、俺の時間は貴重なんだ。お前とこうして問答をしている間にも随分と損失が出た。例と言ってはなんだがディニーはいらないか。それで手を引いてくれると助かる。
じゃあこっちがディニーをあげるって言ったらあんたは諦めてくれるわけ？
俺の求める額をお前が払えるとは思えんな。この俺にここまで歯向かってきた人間も久しぶりだ。もういい。交渉で拉致が開かないのなら実力行使に出るまでだ。言っておくがどれだけ高額になろうと俺は譲らんぞ。
市長さんからいっぱいもらったとはいえ、この悪の資本家みたいな人にかなうかはちょっとわからないね。
どうもどうも。やはり最後に勝つのは俺だったようだ。これにてこちらの品は俺のものとなった。改めて皆には心からの
あとちょっとで勝てたのに。悪徳資本家め。
ヒューゴさんから DM だ。
上を見たまえ。
何が起きたの？明かりが消えた？ 停電？
ママ、怖いよ。
レディース&ジェントルメン、オークションを楽しんでいるだろうか。冗長かつくだらん前座に付き合わせてしまったことをお詫びしよう。脳のないやつほど決まってよくさえずるものだ。どうか許してやってくれたまえ。
あの人、なんだか見覚えがあるような。
まさか。
何を突っ立っている。不法侵入だととっ捕まえろ。無礼な。俺はただ俺のものを取り戻しに来ただけなのだがね。いつの間に。さて、今宵のショーも終わりが近づいている。会場の皆々様、最後までどうか素敵な夜を。モッキンバードより心を込めて。やつを追え。あのコソ泥を逃がしてみろ。給料はないと思
ここに現真実を申しますと、先ほど現れたモッキンバードなる輩とは
信じてもらえないかもしれないけど、実は私もあの人知り合いなの。
なんとあの男との間にそのようなことが。もう随分昔のことでございます。私がヒューゴと共に怪盗団モッキンバードを立ち上げたのは、幼稚で壮大な夢を掲げ、自分たちが正しいと思うことを一つずつ成し遂げていきました。当初は全てが順調だったんです。あんなことが起こるまでは。今思えば予兆はあったのかもしれません。誰も気づく者がいなかったか、あるいは気づくこと自体を避けていたか。いずれにせよ、私はモッキンバードから足を洗い、市長閣下が差し伸べてくださった手を取りました。当然穏便に別れることは叶わず、今やヒューゴとは祝言の中というありさまではございますが、恐れながらあなた様はあの男をどう見ますか。
悪い人には思えないけどね。一応この間は助けてくれたし。
さようでございますか。私が思うに、それはあなた様に近づくためあの男が用意した偽りの姿ではないかと。いずれにせよ彼は危険な男でございます。今のところ彼の目的は明らかではありませんが、サクリファイスのコアを明け渡してはならないことだけは確かかと。幸い私は過去の経験からヒューゴの逃走経路をおおよそ推測できます。追っ手を容易に振り切るのに適したルート、それはすなわちホローの中でございます。ついてはプロ騎士様、
時間がもったいないし、このまま行っちゃおう。なんか今の私、自分でも怖いくらい調子がいいの。
かしこまりました。では私と共にこちらへ。行動を共にしていた頃、彼は守りやすく攻めにくいルートを選ぶ傾向にありました。 港は入り組んでいるのでエーテリアスの待ち伏せにある恐れがあるかと。くれぐれもお気をつけください。
おい、エーテリアスに囲まれてるのに全然余裕か。
不本意ながら認めざるを得ません。あの男はかなりの手だれです。立ち回り方もよく
アディオス。痛いぞ。せいぜい気をつけろ。
させるか。ロキシ様、あれはヒューゴの持つ武器の一種。くれぐれもお気をつけください。効果を持していますが、その実はダーツでございます。アタッシュケースの中に様々な武器を隠し、この場所を熟知しているようですね。黒騎士様、長引いてしまえば我々にとって不利になります。速やかに突破いたしましょう。動かないように。どうか落ち着いて。この仕掛けは依然として正常に作動している。どうも引っかかります。こうも順調ですと、これすらも計画のうち。動かないように。どうか落ち着いて。動かないように。間違いない。どうかご安心ください、黒騎士様。時期に追いつけます。おそらくこの方角でしょう。あの者たちはオークション側の追っ手でしょうか。過去の経験に照らし戦利品を手に入れたヒューゴはその一方で相棒である私が今の彼に相棒がいるか、またいるとすればそれは誰。
私たちが会った時はヒューゴさん一人しかいなかったような気がするけど。
そうであれば良いのですが、サクリファイスのコアは必然的にあの男が持っているということになります。とはいえひとまずこのホローレイダーたちから身を隠すといたしましょう。対峙すること自体は訳もありませんが、ここで衝突してもまずはヒューゴを追い、市長閣下のも 背いたのはお前だ。
相変わらず偉そうに。
黒吉様、ご無事ですか？お怪我は？
平気。うっかりしてたな。ヤスの中にいるつもりで間に入っちゃったよ。あの子の身長なら届きっこないし、とか思って。
安心したまえ店長君。君が何度飛び込んでこようと、俺はその度にすぐ刃を収めよう。俺の鎌が志を同じくする者に向けられることはない。他でもない。君には。だが、そこにいる男に関しては何とも言えん。昔のそいつは喧嘩となると誰かで構わずぶん殴るものだから手に負えなくてな。
そのような物言いはよしていただきましょう。
何か間違ったことを言ったかね？俺が嘘をついているとでも？
今日は坊主だと思ってたが、最後の最後で月が回ってきたな。おとなしくしろ。エーテル物質をありったけ差し出せ。金目のものがあればそれでもいい。ただで逃げられると思うなよ。
皆様と事を構えるつもりは毛頭ございません。ここへ来た目的はエーテル資源の採掘ではなく、単なる私事ですので。
ごちゃごちゃ言ってんじゃねえ。今日の稼ぎは散々だな。何かで埋め合わせなきゃなんねえんだ。お前らの目的が何であれ、通行料なしにここは通さねえぜ。
通行料？ここはフォローだ。まさか聞こうや。自分がフォローの主だとでも言うのかね？新エリートの市長殿でもそんな大口は叩かないぞ。なあ、メイフラワー家の番犬君。
なんだ、もやしみてえな体で偉そうな口聞きやがって。差し出す気がねえってんなら、こっちも遠慮はしねえ。こちとらもう何人もあの世送りにしてきてんだぜ。さあ、お前らはどうしてやろうか。
やめておけ。
残念だが止めるには一歩遅かったな。俺はとっくに切れている。
勘弁してくれ。
恐怖で取り乱すくらいなら初めから手を出すべきではなかったな。道を選んだ以上代価を支払う覚悟をしておくものだ。
俺が間違ってた。どうか命だけは。もうこんなことしね
お前も気が済んだだろう。命まで奪う必要はない。俺が治安局に引き渡す。
何？貴様、いつから俺へ指図できる立場になった？こちらを殺す気で喧嘩を売ってきた連中だぞ。貴様はそれを許そうというのか？ないかも。あれからもう随分経ったにもかかわらず、貴様は何一つ成長していないのだな。その救世主じみた幻想をさっさと捨て去ると言ったはずだ。道端の野良犬を片っ端から拾ってくような聖人君主にでもなるつもりか？それとも目玉と足だけでは教訓として不十分だったかね？
俺の信念は変わらない。お前も分かっているはずだ。何人も人の命を奪う権利などないのだと。
悪党に罰を与えるのに何をためらうことがある。こいつらが今まで手にかけた命の数を知っても同じことが言えるか。俺はただこの世界にしかるべき公平を取り戻しているに過ぎない。
その審判を下すのは俺たちではない。これ以上の問答は無駄だ。だがお前が何度繰り返そうとその度に俺が止めてみせる。
やってみろ。何度だって貴様を打ち負かしてやる。這いつくばる準備はできているか、裏切り者。
喋りが過ぎるぞ。
黒騎士君、メイフラワー家の人間には気を許すなよ。無論その勧誘。
どうしても喧嘩しなきゃダメなの？
これはお見汚し失礼。どうもこの男を殴らずにはいられなくてね。
ヒューゴめ、やはりここに。かつて行動を共にしていた頃、彼は守りやすく攻めにくいルートを選ぶ傾向がありました。黒騎士様、港は入り組んでいるためエーテリアスの待ち伏せに遭う恐れがある。
エーテリアスに囲まれてるのに全然余裕か。
不本意ながら認めざるを得ます。あの男はかなりの手だれです。
アディオ。痛いぞ。せいぜい気をつけろ。
黒騎士様、あれはヒューゴの持つ武器の一種。くれぐれもお気をつけください。効果を模していますが、この実はダーツでございます。アタッシュケースの中に様々な武器を隠し持つ厄介な。ここはこの場所を熟知しているようですね。黒騎士様、長引いてしまえば我々にとって不利になります。速やかに突破いたしましょう。どうか落ち着いて。動かないように。 仕掛けは依然として正常に作動している。どうも引っかかります。どうも順調ですと、これすらも計画の打ち掛けを疑わざるを得ません。やめてください。どうか落ち着いて。動かないように。この方向、間違いない。どうかご安心ください、プロ騎士様。おそらくこの方角でしょう。どうか落ち着いて。この辺りにいるはずですが。プロ騎士様、ご無事ですか？
今日はゴーズだと。
這いつくばる準備はできているか、裏切り。
喋りが過ぎるぞ。
プロ騎士君、メイフラワー家の人間には気を許すな。無論その介入。新エリートの七。
どうしても喧嘩しなきゃダメなの？
これはお見汚し失礼した。どうもこの男を殴らずにはいられなくてね。全力作業や。
どうか落ち着いて。窓を噛みつぶしますよ。
いずれお前たちは俺の技術をマスターするだろう。だが今はそれ以上に重要なことを教えておく。それは信念だ。
信念？じいちゃん、なんで怪盗に信念がいるんだよ。
当たり前だろ。俺たちが何のために戦うと思ってんだ。
富と栄光、権力のために決まってるだろ。 いつの日か頂に立って誰にも指図されずに生きるためのな。誰しもそう願うものだろ。それともなんだライカ、お前の言う信念ってやつは正義とか夢とか絆とかそんな綺麗事じゃないだろうな。お笑いだぜ。もう少し大人になるよ。いつまでもくだらん救世主じみた幻想にとらわれてんだ。
なんだと。はっ、お前なんぞに分かってたまるか。
It's been months since Zenless Zone Zero launched, and let's be honest, we've all felt the pain of losing a 50-50 or watching the standard banner crush our dreams. But now you've hit 300 pulls, and it's time to make a game-changing decision. Who should you pick from the stable, aka non-limited, banner? Well, don't worry, today I'll be breaking down the pros and cons of every option, alongside some team recommendations. And with this information, you'll be able to make the best choice for your account. Without further ado though, let's get into it. Now, I did lie, because I do actually want to include a warning and disclaimer before we talk about the major influencing factors for this choice. And with this, what I want to say initially is that this is a guide with recommendations based on my experience and time testing these characters. However, if you decide that at any point a character is your favorite, by all means feel free to choose them, and this video is not necessarily made for you. With that said, there are now 2 questions or factors that I consider to be very important when selecting your free S-Rank agent. First, will this choice unlock a powerful mindscape? And second, is the character actually useful? Now, technically there's a third factor here to consider, and that's whether this choice would unlock missing characters from your account's roster. If this selector lets you obtain missing characters on your account, it could be helpful towards your account's progression. While not the biggest priority, this offers benefits like greater team versatility and the ability to swap out agents to better counter boss element weaknesses. Additionally, Zenless Zone Zero's endgame is designed with 2 or 3 unique team compositions required, so there's value in this sense too. Now, this does also come with weaknesses and concerns, as sometimes building weaker characters to then later learn that a new limited character will outperform them can simply feel bad. But let's move to the next important and more priority factors to consider. The first factor we need to talk about is mindscapes, and this is directed towards players who have lost several 50-50s, have now unlocked all standard characters on the banner, and are now unsure about who to pick next. In this scenario, evaluating the mindscapes of agents is important. Some agents' mindscapes have better benefits than others, and this can dictate your choice too. The second factor that plays a big part in your choice will be the agent's performance and feel. While taking agents that you're missing for flexibility or for a shiny new mindscape may be nice, it's equally as important to remember that certain agents are just weaker and can actually be a worse choice if taken in place of others. Now that we know what's important in regards to our agent choice, let's move to each character and what their strengths/weaknesses are. Soldier 11 is a solid fire DPS with a simple yet effective playstyle and was the go-to fire DPS prior to Evelyn and Bernice's banners. Her fire suppression mechanic enhances her basic attacks and abilities, which allow her to then deal constant fire damage and maintain consistent DPS. She also has strong burst potential with new discoveries like the chain attack cancel being especially powerful when utilized properly on her. Despite all this, however, Soldier 11 is not a top tier DPS and is outclassed by limited characters in terms of raw damage output. To add, in order to even remain competitive or perform above other DPS, players will need to optimize her gameplay heavily with things like timing her basic attacks perfectly or performing a 4 chain attack combo. Considering both her strengths and weaknesses as a whole though, Soldier 11 still remains a strong option for the selector if you're looking to use a fire DPS that isn't Bernice or Evelyn. Additionally, even when Element isn't the focus, she does still perform decently in general endgame content until better premium options become available. Grace is an S-rank anomaly agent who specializes in electric damage and shock application. Her strengths include the ability to build shock quickly and having a decently low cost EX special to then spam her attacks. Now while this is the case, her damage source primarily being shocks that she has to cast while on field means that she takes more time and effort than her peers to deal damage. This added time and effort can be challenging to work around in time sensitive scenarios, even if the time and fight favors having Grace to begin with. But this then begs the question, for what reason would you take Grace in a fight if she deals less damage and requires more effort to do so as well? With both her strengths and weaknesses, it's clear that Grace has lower value than someone like Soldier from a DPS standpoint, but she does still have the role of an anomaly applier. Because of this, if you don't have Yanagi, Grace can still have value in offering a way to apply disorder on teams that need it. Nekomata is an S-rank physical agent known for her fast-paced playstyle. She has exceptional mobility with her basic and dash attacks letting her reposition in battle, and her EX special attack is extremely low energy cost, meaning that she can use it more frequently than other characters. Additionally, since she is from the Cunning Hares faction, she can satisfy her team condition easily even as a free-to-play player. However, Nekomata does have notable drawbacks. She relies heavily on dodge counters and quick assists to maintain her core passive, which can then be difficult to manage depending on the fight or situation. To add, Nekomata also has to consider several different factors during combat. This includes maintaining her core passive during stun damage windows, where she must first use a support to provide quick assists, or she risks missing out on a huge damage boost. The main issue with this and other optimizations is that quick assists or timing such setups can create frustration in her gameplay, both feeling-wise and in terms of her DPS. On a final note,
それが間違いだとも思わん。この世には公平でないことが多すぎる。だからこそ俺は公平をもたらすために特別な手段を用いることも厭わない。だが命、これだけは例外だ。どんな状況であれ、これにだけは手を出すな。この世に二つとないものを奪う権利のある者などいない。公平の計りをもってしても命の重さは誰にも計れんのだ。肝に銘じておけよ。ああ、じっちゃん。返事が聞こえんな、ヒューゴ。
じっちゃんの言う通り、この世は不公平だ。公平さをもたらすというなら、誰かを傷つけた者には同等の痛みを与え、命を奪った者には等しく死を与えるべきだ。それに命の重さなんて持ち主によるだろう。
Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and ladies and gentlemen, that 51st state of Canada is about to look like a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of those weird things where, about a month ago I made a video where it's like, it's about to get real bad. And I was looking at the start of a trade war between Canada and the US, and normally I don't really talk about this kind of stuff, but it does actually end up personally affecting everyone here. And when you can't stop hearing about something every 20 seconds, like every day, it all appears to get just worse and worse, yeah, it's gotta be talked about. It's gotta be discussed, okay? So as you all know, I'm a Canadian, okay? I'm from the land of the maple leaf, maple syrup, and all that good stuff. And for the longest time, I have been great friends with my friends down south. I actually live like an hour away from the border, and it's a pretty good time. I actually go back and forth a fair bit. There's good friends of mine that live in Buffalo. I go there, they come here, it happens, okay? It's a life, all right? It's part of that experience. But unfortunately, in recent times, it really seems like I don't have to cross the border that much anymore. Because the guys down south might just end up taking over Canada. Much like the Fallout franchise, where Canada was annexed by the United States, and people were just shot in the head in that franchise. Okay, it wasn't exactly a peaceful annexation. We didn't just bend over, spread our ass cheeks, and tell you, yeah, please fuck us repeatedly. No, it was actually pretty violent in that game, okay? People don't really talk about it all that much. But yeah, it is what it is. That's kind of how it seems to be in reality land, especially when an annexation happens. Now, if you look in the actual polls, you might be like, but Muda, what if the people in the Maple Leaf land want to be Americans, okay? Now, to give you an idea, there are some people that probably do. In fact, I've even joked about it, but the thing about jokes is I never expected that joke to eventually, maybe one day, be a possible serious reality. There was a recent poll done by the Angus Reid Institute where they actually said that 9 in 10 Canadians unanimously said we should not join the US. What a shocker. Bunch of people love their sovereignty. I know, really wild indeed. But, you know, every single, other day, you know, the president of the United States, I wouldn't even be making this video if it had just been, some fucking no-name dipshit, okay? That happens all the time, all right? I'm sorry to say. There are dumb crackpot nut jobs everywhere. But when the largest person in the room, when the highest dude in the room is saying it, yeah, it's a little worrisome, okay? So I want you to listen to this one right here. We as Canadians, we've been listening to this shit every other day, okay?
And to be honest with you, Canada only works as a state. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually. If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it between Canada and the US. Just a straight artificial line. Somebody did it a long time ago, many, many decades ago, and makes no sense. It's so perfect as a great and cherished state. Keeping "O Canada," the national anthem. I love it. I think it's great. Keep it. But it'll be for the state, one of our greatest states. Maybe our greatest state.
Wait, hold on. Now, on one hand, for the last month, we've been told we're a cuckold, libtard state that nobody wants, okay? Nobody would like it. We have nothing to offer. They've got nothing to give. And then all of a sudden, if they become part of it, they might be the greatest state. Now, of course, for Canadians who are like, whoa, would you become a voting state? I don't think anyone in that country would want Canada to be a voting state. Okay, do you want another California? Do you want another liberal bunch of people voting? It ain't gonna happen, all right? I've lived in the U.S. I've learned about how voting works over there. If anything, they'd probably make us Guam 2.0. They'd probably keep us like Puerto Rico, just a territory, not necessarily a state, I would say. I don't think we would agree to it, but then again, when it comes to the threat of annexation, the U.S. military is such a strong army that I'm pretty sure they can take on every single army in the world. Probably at the same time. So yeah, it really wouldn't be our decision making, okay? It would just be the choice of the person attacking. Now when he talks about the line as well too, to give you an idea, a little parallel is the War of 1812, for instance, right? When the US was fighting against the United Kingdom and a lot of its allies. And the origin for this war was often discussed with trade restrictions introduced by Britain to impede American trade, the impressment of seamen on US sea vessels, but this is the most important one, a possible desire by the US to annex some or all of Canada. And of course I wanted to look at, how the fuck did we decide our boundary wall, okay? I actually think this is an interesting concept. How do countries decide that where the line begins and where it ends, right? Who decides how much land we have? And based on this one example here, all right, from Canada, the Canadian Encyclopedia, October 20th, 1818, a British-American convention clarified the western border between Canada and the United States as a line from the farthest northwest point of the Lake of the Woods to the 49th parallel, and then west of the Rocky Mountains. And of course, it then gets decided more and more and more and more and more, right? To the point where basically over 100 years through international border agencies, through like deciders, we basically put down exactly where our land begins and where it ends. Through several wars and decisions, we have both collectively come basically deciding where we should put our lines. This is not somebody drew an imaginary line. We decided this through the course of several years. Now, there's been other bits of misinformation that I've been seeing posted around about it, with obviously related to the reason why all of this happened in the first place. So for anybody that doesn't know, we have tariffs on Canada and back and forth. In fact, they were kind of like pussyfooting around this. Like, for one day they got introduced, the Americans removed it like a couple days later. So it's like, dude, just shit or get off the pot, okay? Either fuck us in the ass or stop tempting it, okay? Just do it or don't. And one of the big realities of it was obviously the funneling of a drug known as fentanyl. Now, to give you an idea, Canada was responsible for a very minuscule amount of said fentanyl coming in. In fact, ever since the first bout of those tariffs and us actually increasing our security, that number ended up dropping all the way down 97% to less than 14 grams. And this information is not information that Canada has made up. This information comes from the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol Agency, okay? You can read this information from yourself. It comes from the US. A lot of people have said that, oh man, Canada's not doing enough. Bro, when stuff comes into your country, it is your border agency's responsibility. If they're not doing their job, I would imagine you should get your own house in order. At this point, I'm pretty sure Canada imports more illegal fentanyl than the other side. But honestly, I really do wish that this drug was just stopped overall. Fentanyl is really, really scary. Really spooky. One of the actual, unrelated topics to this video I covered was, the end of an era where I looked at, YouTubers who were doing angry reviews. One of them was a guy named Silent Rob, and his life was effectively destroyed because of this drug. It's just that when this drug you take, it has such a hold on you that it's almost impossible to get rid of. If I could remove this illegal drug from existence, the illegal use of it, I 100% would. And of course, and when you go back to security on that border, even though we've basically capitulated and given everything that the Americans wanted, it's still not enough. So realistically, it's just making it make sense. What do they want? Now, the big thing about this whole situation is you probably noticed that Canada's been getting rid of all that American booze, so for me to go get some Jack Daniels is just not going to be happening all that easy, okay? A lot of that American stuff is removed, and I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't like this level of disturbance between countries that really should just be friends, okay? It is actually kind of just sad to really talk about. But Canada responded, and we pretty much are not bending over, all right? Now, obviously, look, Canada is far weaker than the United States in its military and its trade, but if it's one beautiful thing that I've seen kind of kick out of this is Canadians have kind of unified together. And I've actually, I do grocery shopping. I go out and I actually shop for my groceries. Okay, it's a very adult, normal thing to do. And every time I go there, there's a very, very big stance every time you go to the grocery store to buy Canadian. In fact, if anything, it's pretty much just shown in magic, giant lettering that this is a Canadian product and that's a product from the old down south. And it normally never used to be like that, but Canada has made a concerted effort to at least support ourselves, even though it's mostly a battle of attrition. And the more and more I read about our retaliation, it definitely is something we're doing because we're all just inspired. We are a country that is proud of ourselves, and honestly, I don't think Canada wants to see itself ever dissolved, which is actually pretty heartwarming to see. Now, even amongst all these tariffs, there have been other pieces of misinformation. I saw this entire list of tariffs that Canada has placed on America as hey, they're doing it to us, fuck you! And then I started to look even closer into that. And the reality of it is, even entire international organizations say that that's wrong. It takes one search to clarify this. For instance, the International Dairy Foods Association actually did talk about this. So in one situation regarding those tariffs that Canada put on, the actual IDFA said it is accurate that Canada imposes a tariff of approximately 250% on US exports of certain dairy products into Canada, and even more with those 25% retaliatory things that we put on top. However, the tariffs would only apply if we were able to reach and exceed a quota on the US dairy exports agreed to under the USMCA Act. Now, for anybody that has no idea about this act, Trump is the one that wrote it. Like, dog, you made one of the greatest trade deals of all time, and now we're backing off on it. What the fuck? Frustratingly, the US has never gotten close to exceeding our USMCA quotas because Canada has erected various protectionist measures, which we've always have done. In fact, these measures existed for a long time, and they were agreed for by the greatest salesman in the world, okay? It's really hard to do his voice. But yeah, it's just insane that we're reneging on a deal that was apparently supposed to be one of the greatest trade deals of all time. The U.S. trade area is grateful for the Trump's administration to hold Canada accountable for these protectionist measures. At the same time, a prolonged tariff war with our top trading partners will continue to create uncertainty and create costs. And it really is. Like, it's a bad situation for every side involved. Now, obviously, I don't think that a tariff is terribly the worst thing ever made. In a lot of ways, if you want to protect your own country and your own things, like the US clearly does, it's good to have. But destabilizing these relationships that exist between both countries is just never a good look. It's never good. And a lot of the talk about annexations, right? Like, there's even more clips. I showed you one, but here's another one right here. As this trade war was escalating, effectively Trump's posting around based on Ontario, Canada placing a 25% tariff on electricity coming into the US. I have instructed my secretary to add an additional 25% tariff to 50%. It's like reading somebody play fucking Civilization, dude. It's crazy. Canada must immediately drop their anti-American climate tariff from 250 to 390. You agreed on it. You wrote this. You said it was the greatest trade deal. What the fuck? I will shortly be declaring a national emergency within the threatened area. So, you know, when you start reading things like this, again, like I said, if it was some random dipshit nobody, like, who gives a fuck, right? But if it's the President of the United States, then we gotta be a little bit concerned, okay? Your brilliant anthem, O Canada, will continue to play, but now representing a great and powerful state within the greatest nation that the world has ever seen. You know, and the thing about it is, it's like having like crazy tariffs like this is basically a way to destabilize this country to the point where I really do think that the end goal is basically making us hungry, poor, and completely destitute, and just basically forcing us to effectively be absolved. And the thing about it is, look, you know, the scariest case scenario, and I really do think a lot about war and like end of the world scenarios and shit like that, like end of it all. 90% of this country lives by the border, okay? It really isn't that difficult for the Americans to come over with their army and do shit that they need to. But one thing that I have seen about Canadians is they're not afraid to really be fighting back. One of the interesting things is, as I signed up for my gun license, and this is a while ago, in Canada, in order to get like RPAL licenses, you have to take like actual courses. You have to actually go to like a gun, you have to do like a CFSE course. You have to actually know firearms and safety. And generally those classes you have to apply and book with like private people so that they can like, you know, verify you, and then you actually go do the paperwork to get your RPAL licenses or PAL licenses, whatever the Canadian gun license you need. And those classes have been like booked up. People are fucking actually back into like getting firearms, which is probably one of the cooler things that I'm seeing. 90% of this country does not want to be an American. And honestly, if shit comes down to it, goddamn, at least it sounds like we ain't just laying down. And if we are laying down, it's going to be us pushing up daisies, because at least we kind of fought back against it. And that is just a weirdly depressing thought to think about, you know? Everything that Trump's saying, it's like a rapist talking to you. They just don't take no for an answer. But the reality of it is, it's like, this is not something that is easy to ignore. Like, people can think of it as like a joke down there, but like for people who live in Canada, for instance, who have to just keep like hearing this rhetoric every single day, and then obviously things are getting more expensive on both sides anyways too. So everyone's feeling the brunt of it, and especially for Canadians, seeing things deteriorate like this is never great. Like, I'm somebody that loves the United States. I have a lot of friends and family that live there. And to see the relations drop like a rock in literally just a month is probably one of the saddest things to see. And it's not the only ally, by the way, too. There's plenty of other allies, Europe, Japan, for instance, that are feeling the brunt of just crazy decision making. And it's just not a good situation to be in. Sometimes I wonder if this is like the end of the fucking world. Now, quote from Benjamin Franklin, it is the first responsibility of every citizen to question authority. I don't know if it's entirely, Ben Franklin's statement over here, but generally speaking, ladies and gentlemen, I really do think that, worst case scenario, I really don't think that there might be, boots over the actual, border. At least I hope not. God damn, that's scary. But daily when you hear this kind of rhetoric and you hear it constantly being normalized, it is something where I kind of wonder if people on the other side of the border are a little bit questioning as well, too. There are some things that probably, shouldn't happen. And I like to imagine that people over on the other side of the border might choose to blink twice if ever asked to attack their neighbors. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been neighbors for decades, and I hope to remain neighbors for hundreds of years. And that's pretty much what it comes down to. It's such a wild situation, and honestly, I don't really like jumping into this era of discussion, but honestly, as a Canadian and as somebody that has to see it, this video is more like a vent video to me, and I actually thought, based on a month and a half ago, things would actually maybe get better. But we're at the lowest relations we've probably seen for a while. And it doesn't seem like it's turning around. Nobody's getting the picture. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and that's all I gotta say. I'm out. Hello, guys and gals. Like this is basically a way to destabilize this country to the point where I really do think that the end goal is basically making us hungry, poor, and completely destitute, and just basically forcing us to effectively be absolved. And the thing about it is, look, the scariest case scenario, and I really do think a lot about war and end of the world scenarios and shit like that, end of it all. 90% of this country lives by the border, okay? It really isn't that difficult for the Americans to come over with their army and do shit that they need to. But one thing that I have seen about Canadians is they're not afraid to really be fighting back. One of the interesting things is, as I signed up for my gun license, and this is a while ago, in Canada, in order to get RPAL licenses, you have to take actual courses. You have to actually go to a gun, you have to do a CFSE course. You have to actually know firearms and safety. And generally, those classes you have to apply and book with private people so that they can verify you, and then you actually go do the paperwork to get your RPAL licenses or PAL licenses, whatever the Canadian gun license you need. And those classes have been booked up. People are fucking actually back into getting firearms, which is probably one of the cooler things that I'm seeing. 90% of this country does not want to be an American. And honestly, if shit comes down to it, goddamn, at least it sounds like we ain't just laying down. And if we are laying down, it's going to be us pushing up daisies, because at least we kind of fought back against it. And that is just a weirdly depressing thought to think about, Everything that Trump's saying, it's like a rapist talking to you. They just don't take no for an answer. But the reality of it is, it's this is not something that is easy to ignore. People can think of it as a joke down there. But for people who live in Canada, for instance, who have to just keep hearing this rhetoric every single day, and then obviously things are getting more expensive on both sides anyways too. So everyone's feeling the brunt of it, and especially for Canadians, seeing things deteriorate like this is never great. I'm somebody that loves the United States. I have a lot of friends and family that live there. And to see the relations drop like a rock in literally just a month is probably one of the saddest things to see. And it's not the only ally, by the way, too. There's plenty of other allies, Europe, Japan, for instance, that are feeling the brunt of just crazy decision-making. And it's just not a good situation to be in. Sometimes I wonder if this is the end of the fucking world. Now, quote from Benjamin Franklin, it is the first responsibility of every citizen to question authority. I don't know if it's entirely, Ben Franklin's statement over here, but generally speaking, ladies and gentlemen, I really do think that, worst case scenario, I really don't think that there might be boots over the actual border. At least I hope not. God damn, that's scary. But daily when you hear this kind of rhetoric and you hear it constantly being normalized, it is something where I kind of wonder if people on the other side of the border are a little bit questioning as well too. You know, there are some things that probably, shouldn't happen, and I like to imagine that people over on the other side of the border might choose to blink twice if ever asked to attack their neighbors. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been neighbors for decades, and I hope to remain neighbors for hundreds of years. And that's pretty much what it comes down to. It's such a wild situation, and honestly, I don't really like jumping into this era of discussion, but honestly, as a Canadian and as somebody that has to see it, this video is more like a vent video to me, and I actually thought, based on a month and a half ago, things would actually maybe get better. But we're at the lowest relations we've probably seen for a while. And it doesn't seem like it's turning around. Nobody's getting the picture. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and that's all I gotta say. I'm out.
お待ちしていた。またお会いできて何よりなのです。親愛なるプロ騎士さん、こそこそと嗅ぎ回っている人たちからとっくに聞いているとは思いますが、サクリファイスを利用して新エリートに害をなそうとする者がいるそうですね。そんなことまで知ってるの？私だってさっき聞いたばっかりなのに。あなたのことをずっと見ていたのです。知っていることはこれだけではありません。ですが私はあの偽善者たちと違ってあなたに全てを教えることができます。協力関係を結ぶ以上当然の誠意なのです。私はブリンガーの遺物を見つける必要があるのですから。ブリンガーの遺物？本当にそんなものがあるの？もちろん。私、自分の情報網には結構自信があるのです。だからこそ協力関係を結ぼうと提案しているのです。ブリンガーの遺物は例のサクリファイス襲撃事件を調査する上でキーとなるのですから、あれを見つけることができれば彼らの企みも丸分かりなのです。その彼らって？もちろん三商会のことなのです。サクリファイスにまつわる事件の裏には必ず彼らが暗躍しているのですから。実を言うと私と三商会にもいくらか因縁と呼べるものがあるのです。当然これ以上の情報は私との協力関係を承諾していただいてからですが。いいよ、協力しよう。グーなのです。態度がはっきりしている人は好きです。そうそう、念のため確認させてもらいますが、フォローの中であなたは戦力になるのですか？それはほら、知っての通り私プロ騎士だし。やっぱりですか。構いません。あなたは貴重なプロ騎士。進む道を示してくれさえすればいいのです。我が最愛のパエトーン様でさえフォローで戦うことは増えてでいらっしゃるのですから。さもありなのです。待って、今なんて？最愛のパエトーン？そうです。新エリートで最大最高最強のプロ騎士パエトーン様のことです。まさかあなたパエトンさんのアンチですか？信じてくれないかもしれないけど、実は私がパエトンだった ったりして。
はあ？ちょっと何を言っているかわからないのです。あなたは確かに優秀なプロ棋士かもしれませんが、パエトーン様は別格。パエトーン様以外のプロ棋士は全てパエトーン様未満ですが、気持ちはわからないでもないのです。実際はあなたもパエトーン様に脳を焼かれてしまった一人なのですね。パエトーン様を人生の目標とし、それでも満たされず、パエトーン様そのものになりたいと思うようになってしまった。
なんて言ったらいいかな。本当にパエトーンのファンってわけじゃないの。だって私、
皆まで言う必要はないのです。パエトーン様の愛を公言することに迷いがあるのですね。私も同じような時期がありました。ですが大丈夫。あなたの心についた愛の炎は勇気を持って認めてあげるのです。同担として私が共に前へと進んであげます。ですから心置きなくパエトーン様を推しましょう。もうこんな時間なのです。私としたことがパエトーン様のこととなるとつい歯止めが効かなくなってしまうのです。今日はここまでとしましょう。また後ほど連絡を差し上げます。
プロ棋士先生、あなたもいたの？
ここでお会いできるとは予測していませんでした。
どうしてアンビーたちもいるの？っていうかまだその格好してたんだ。調査しに来たの。この間の件について。黒幕の手がかりがようやく最近つかめたから。でも情報提供者は警戒してて、私の素性を確かめたがってる。だからこの格好で会うことにしたの。あのことならもう決着がついたから。この制服には何の意味もないと思う。今の私からすればこれはただの服。結局のところ私たちは前に進まないといけないから。
私はアンビーの助力となるべく同行いたしました。もちろん黒幕を捕らえたいという思いは同じです。ところでこちらの女性は？
ビビアンっていうの、友達なんだ。ちょっとここで調べたいことがあってね。 ジャトヤの最高戦力が1、アンビーさん、そしてオボルス小隊狙撃手トリガーさん、お会いできて光栄なのです。
私たちを知っているの？事前調査は徹底されているようですね。プロ騎士さんに起因するものでしょうか？
あなた方はとても有名なのです。お仕事上、新エリートで名を馳せている人々については把握するようにしています。
そういうわけですか。どうやら立派なお仕事をされているようです。
私たちはこれからフォローに入るのです。お話が済んだようであればここで失礼したいのですが。
フォローに入る？でもプロ騎士先生、あなたは生身。
ご本、実はね、最近体の調子が良くって防護装備がなくてもフォローに入れるようになったんだよね。あなたは以前オークションで。
こんにちは。また会えるとは思ってなかったわ、お嬢さん。
ビビアン、大丈夫？すごく悲しそうだわ。
ビビアン、どうしたの？具合でも悪い？少しぼんやりしていました。大丈夫なのです。それはそうと、どうしてあなたがここにいるのです？
安心して、今日はあなたたちのお金を騙し取る気はないわ。ここで待ち合わせをしているだけだから。
情報提供者というのはあなた？
そうよ。あなたがかのシルバー小隊のアンビーね。会えて嬉しいわ。それじゃこちらの方と情報交換してくるから失礼するわ。
ビビアン、なんか顔色悪いよ。後で詳しく話すのです。今はダメです。
以上、私が把握できてる情報はこれだけよ。交換条件と言ってはなんだけど、ちょっと私を手伝ってくれないかしら。ホラーの中に連れて行ってほしいの。大事なものを落としたから見つけたくて。
私たちもちょうどフォローへ入るところだったのです。そういうことならついていってあげないこともないです。
私は構わないわ。けどあなたたちは別の用事があるんじゃ。
大丈夫なのです。私たちは急いでいませんから。そうですよね、プロ騎士さん。確かにそこまで急ぎじゃないけど。じゃあ一緒に行く？探し物なら人手が多いに越したことはないのです。何より安全ですから。
ありがとう。
ここには何をしに来たの？温存してください、アンディ。あなた方と同じです。大事なものを探しに。新エリュートの存続がかかっている。助けも過言ではないんです。今こそ変流の修正を行います。近くから来ます。このまま食らいつきます。チャンス。今こそ終了。次は私の番です。あなた方は何の調査を？シルバーを知ってるなら、それがもうこの世に存在しないことも把握してるはずよ。私が調査してることもそれと関係があるの。弾丸は風と一つ。速攻です。エーテルサイト起動。いい戦術。黒吉さん、裂け目を通って次の場所に向かいましょう。ここよ。あなたは何を落としたの？
指輪よ。以前エーテル資源を探しに来た時、この近くでうっかりなくしてしまったみたいで。手分けして探してもらっていい？この辺りの。
わかったわ。私は向こうに行く。同行します。私は残るのです。
心配ないわ。あなたも彼女たちに加わって。あまり時間をかけさせても悪いし、でも娘が大きくなってあなたみたいな人になってくれたら。
んなところに食べ物。紙袋の中身はどうなってるのかな。想像しなくてもいいって。このぬいぐるみ、なんだか和む。指輪はなさそうだけど。
可愛らしいですね。これは随分と繊細な作りみたいですね。お弁当箱でしょうか。
持ち主が無事だといいけど。ビビアン、どうしたの？さっきから何か思い詰めてるみたいだけど。このまま彼女のことが心配なのです。あそこは安全よ。だといいのですが。
抗います。
私の後ろに。
バイタルはすでに途絶えています。
どういうこと？これはペテン師がその最後に仕掛けたペテンでした。あなたに伝えておかなければいけないことがあるのです。あなたに残されている時間は。
どうしてわかるの？その通りよ。私はここで死ぬ。それが私の計画だから。死に至る病ってやつね。もう長くないわ。医者にかかって悪あがきすることもできたけど、だからちょっとした手で審査をごまかしてレイブンロック家が使ってるフォロー侵食保険を買ったの。私が死んだ後、侵食された体をフォローから持ち出してくれたら娘に多額の保険金が入るわ。レイブンロックの一族には貸しがあるのよ。こんなやり方になったのは残念だけど、きっちり清算させてもら
う。どうして私たちが保険金詐欺の片棒を担ぐと？
あなたなら担いでくれると思ったからよ。申し訳ないと思ってるわ、こんなことに巻き込んで。でもあの子がミラが生きていくためにはこうでもしなきゃいけなかったの。もしミラに会うことがあったらこう伝えてくれる？ママの体は侵食で塵になって土に帰ってしまうかもしれないけれど、あ りがとう。あなたいい人ね。彼女は賭けをしていたのです。私たちが手を貸すかどうか。あなたがそれを察知していたのはなぜ？見えたのです。信じてくれなくてもいいのです。私は子供の頃から様々なことを予見する力がありました。けれど見えるのは不幸ばかり。病に死、災い、ずっとそういうものしか見えなかったのです。
このガキのせいだ。縁起でもないこと言いやがって。
見かけたら周りに言いした方がいいよ。また何か不吉なこと言われてその通りになったらたまったもんじゃない。
よくもまあ予言だなんて言えるよな。あの子自身が招き寄せてるんじゃないのか。
違う、私じゃない。違う、ごめんなさい、ごめんなさい。
謝ってどうなるっていうの。あなたがあんなこと言わなければこんな。
君が悪いったらありゃしない。
あの子はここにいるべきじゃない。みんなもそう思うだろう。
どこかへ行ってくれたらいいのに。
私はただみんなに教えなきゃって。ごめんなさい。いつもこうなのです。見えたとしても私にはそれを変える術がない。時々思うのです。すべてはそこに不幸を見出した私のせいなのではないか。ともすれば私そのものがこうした不幸を招き寄せている元凶なのではと。
Silver isn't just the new gold. Silver is better than gold. This is making silver undervalued right now. It is that spring being compressed. Now you add the short position to that and everything else that we've been talking about here, we are set up for an explosion. Hi, Alan Hibbert is back with me once again, and he has put together one of the best presentations on the potential price that silver could reach, the explosion that could happen in the very near future, actually. Alan, how are you doing?
I'm great, Mike. Thank you. Yes, the prospects for silver are even brighter than those for gold. Silver has been suppressed pretty dramatically, as we're going to see throughout this video, and we are seeing a short squeeze emerge in the United States and globally. So the potential here is absolutely huge, and I want to share some stuff with you and with our audience.
Excellent.
So first of all, silver as a hedge against market chaos. This is kind of interesting because normally we think of gold as a hedge against market chaos, and silver is something a little bit different. So how does this headline land with you?
Well, normally gold is a hedge against any kind of uncertainty, geopolitical, markets, pretty much everything. But this one is very interesting because I've never seen silver in this light. Silver is usually referred to as either the poor man's gold, or it's referred to as something that has bigger potential gains, but has so much volatility that you have to have a stomach of stainless steel, not cast iron, stainless steel, titanium, to be able to ride the silver roller coaster, because the ups and downs, whatever gold does, silver does times 3. This is an interesting article because people are now looking at silver as not just this sort of leveraged play on gold or the potential upside, but also as this real safe haven. And I like to see this. So let's zoom up on this a little. And I want to, so stocks have never, this is the thing about the markets right now. Stocks have never been so overvalued. And that is true. We are currently in the biggest bubble in history. Right now, it's much bigger than the tech bubble in 1999. With stocks trading at nosebleed valuations, almost anything could catalyze a crash. Well, I've referred to, everybody talks about the everything bubble, which is something I sort of, there were a few people, I may have been one of the first to dub this the everything bubble, but then I quickly changed when I was writing my book to, well, it isn't the everything bubble. It's the almost everything bubble, because gold and silver are not in a bubble when you measure them against all the other real stuff in society.
Exactly. And they are going to absorb all the capital from all those other asset classes when they inevitably crash.
Yeah, we're in that capital rotation.
Exactly. Exactly. And I've got an article here from The Economist titled "Why Silver is the New Gold," which is kind of an eye-catching title. Makes your ears perk up.
Oh, and it also says safe haven. Go back to that one.
Yeah,
safe haven demand.
Exactly.
Right.
And
Right.
solar panels. Interesting. So
it's
a combination.
being seen in a new light.
Exactly. Yeah. So a combination of the monetary aspect, the safe haven demand, and the industrial aspect, solar panel demand. Interesting. But not everyone thinks silver is the new gold. They think it's different, or they think it's even better. Like James Anderson here, who says silver is not gold. He's commenting on this exact article. It has near no lenders, almost no lenders. Thus, pilfering unsecured ETFs will be push-shoved. Silver requires much higher spot prices before larger recycling gets going. Interesting. Catchy titles were used in the last bull run, 2010, 2011. Your thoughts on this, Mike? Is silver gold, or is it not gold?
First, I want to comment on the last comment from James, and that is exactly true. Catchy article titles were also used in 2010, 2011. I spoke with David Morgan. Hi, Dave. At a conference in Singapore back in 2010. And we were both wearing hats that said silver is the new gold back in 2010. So this is not new. I'm sure The Economist thinks they've come up with something catchy here. But there are no lenders. The lenders of last resort. When it comes to gold's price getting away, the world's central banks have a lot of gold that they're sitting on, and then they can lease it into the markets, and the bullion banks can then manipulate the price with all of the leased gold, because it's sort of phantom gold coming onto the market. Silver, that doesn't exist. The stockpiles are all gone. So, and then with the silver requires much higher spot prices before large recycling gets going. Yes, you have to put all of the machinery and everything into place. That's years worth of investment. There is going to be something called the big melt. It happened in 1979, 1980, where all of the scrap, but so much of the scrap and old artwork and jewelry and everything was brought in and melted down way back then. that a lot of that doesn't exist anymore, old silverware and things like that. This time around, it requires higher spot prices. But I'll tell you, what happens during a big melt when everybody rushes to see, you see those people during a gold spike back in 2011, all these businesses sprang up, we buy gold. And people standing on the street with flipping signs around their head and stuff, we buy gold. And it became really popular for a little while. But during a big melt, the spreads, they're sitting on so much inventory that it's going to take years for your scrap to actually get melted down, refined, and poured into a bar. And so the people sitting on that, what you can actually get as far as a percentage of the spot price during that rush when everybody wants to turn in all of their scrap, you can't get anything for it. You get maybe 30% of spot or something like that, because all of the people that are buying it, they're going to have to carry a futures contracts that are rolled over for years before that silver gets melted down, and there's a carry cost. So let's move on. I'm sorry I went off on that, but the big thing is there's no lender of last resort to control these price fluctuations. When silver gets out of control, it'll do a moonshot.
Exactly. They try to manipulate it with fictitious silver, but ain't no substitute for the real thing. Speaking of, the White House urges the sale of stockpiled U.S. silver. And was that this week? No, that was back in 1981. Yeah. 1981. So, Mike, you wrote about this in your first book, right? The silver stockpile and getting rid of it?
Yes, and there's data in the first, and it's gone. They did this. The White House urged it. They did it. It's gone, so they can't manipulate it. But, for anybody that's interested, I'm going to be doing some stuff on this. You might want to subscribe to the channel. But the Hunt brothers they had a very outsized, large position. And silver is such a small market compared to gold. Gold was going into a runaway. And the gold market is huge compared to silver. But the Hunt brothers were actually used to cap the price of gold. They were the scapegoats. That's what when they broke the Hunt brothers, the traders that were trading gold, they're on the same exchange floor. And they're going, wow, if they can do that to silver, we're next. Because it was all of the rule changes that broke the Hunt brothers. It wasn't the Hunt brothers were actually on the right side of the trade if the COMEX and the government didn't make the rules, enforce the rules, and change the rules at any whim they want.
Exactly. It's that centralization.
Yeah.
And they can do it again. All right. Silver squeeze on steroids for round 2. Look at this chart shooting up like a rocket. This is the short volume on one of the silver ETFs. And you can see that in the last few weeks, it is absolutely exploding.
Right.
This is silver squeeze. I mean, this is almost off the charts. Good thing they adjusted the scale.
Yeah. So I just need to explain this once again to everybody. So what happens here when you sell short? Your broker goes into somebody's account that has a margin-enabled trading account where they've agreed that the broker can borrow their shares without telling them. So they borrow their shares. You think that if you went long silver in an ETF, you think you own ounces that back that ETF. And the broker goes in and borrows them, loans them to somebody else that sells it to another long. Now 2 people own that same ounce of silver. And so what happens is, and I'm going to be doing a video on this as well, because there's a fascinating one about a railroad. There was 2 very, very powerful groups of people trying to acquire the same railroad, and it caused the entire stock market to crash as one stock shot for the moon. The whole rest of the market crashed so that everybody could get liquid. Well, here we have a potential short squeeze of epic proportions. This increase is all people that are betting that silver will go down. But if it continues going up, they have greater and greater and greater losses. And like I've been saying for many, many years now, silver is destined for triple digits. And as the price goes up, some of these people capitulate. They give in. They go, okay, I can't take any more losses. They close their position at a huge loss. But when they close their position, they have to buy the silver back in the open market. And that causes the price to rise. And when the price rises, the other people that are short then get squeezed even more. So they're hurting even more. And then when one of them capitulates, and as those shorts are covering their positions and it causes the price to rise, all the people that chase momentum start jumping in. And that's how the price shoots for the moon. We are potentially on the verge of this enormous breakout.
Yeah, it's incredible. Look at this. Whew.
Yeah.
All right, let's move along here. Robert Gottlieb. By the way, he's a precious metals industry expert, but he used to be an executive at J.P. Morgan. So he knows what he's talking about. He says silver is now in major dislocation territory with no resolution in sight.
He was an executive at J.P. Morgan's bullion bank, making him a when it says precious metals industry expert, that is true. So major dislocation territory, and it is. Everything is very, very out of whack, and I'm sure the exchanges are in panic mode right now.
And he says here the implied lease rate for 1 week is over 10%. 10% for a week. I mean, that's astronomical.
Wow.
Yeah, so things are going to get interesting in the coming days.
Yep.
Things are going to get explosive. And by the way, silver inventories are leaking from London to New York. This is just like what we've seen with gold. Interesting. So maybe silver is the new gold, but maybe it's not. But anyways, you can see here that inventories in London have been dropping last few months, heading into 2025 and continuing. And then in New York, obviously they're filling up here. So we see this silver moving from London to New York.
Yeah, I just want to point out for all of the viewers, there is a chapter in The Great Gold and Silver Rush of the 21st Century that's free online. Chapter 3 teaches you what to look for in a chart. Alan and I spent a long time putting this together, but in this chart, one of the things that I see that gives you, it skews your perception visually. And I just want to point out that because that scale, yes, the scale on the bottom is so small, from 250 to 375, as compared to ounces that are measured 750 to 1200. So it makes that bit going out of London look small, and it makes what's going into the United States look large. Well, they're probably about the same size. It's just all the way that you read the chart. It is silver flowing from London to New York, and it's very obvious if you know how to read the chart. There's not a bunch of magical silver coming out of nowhere to add to that black line of the New York, the COMEX inventory.
Yeah.
That London inventory that is making that black line. It's just the scales that make it look bigger.
Yeah, and even the amount flowing out of London is larger than the amount flowing into New York. So it's dropping, depending where you measure it from, but it's down about 100 million. If you 850 to 750, down about 100, but up only about 75. 300 to 375. So some people are taking physical possession, obviously. So, but yeah, we are seeing pretty significant flows. That's kind of the main takeaway here.
Okay.
However, this is just the overall inventories, but what about the ones that are available for trading? Well, countdown to the silver squeeze you can buy into. As a tidal wave of metal makes its way into the US, as we just showed, the LBMA's free-floating silver inventories have now inadvertently drained by roughly 100 million year to date, and that's 33% of the free-floating silver year to date. That's a high percentage very quickly.
So, we did some research just before this, and we discovered that free floating is the same as the registered category at COMEX. It is so this is the silver that is available for sale. This is, if you're trying to buy something, it's just this silver. And a third of it has been depleted in 2.5 months. This is just amazing. And we are set up for an absolute explosion. This is the dislocation that was in that previous article. Things are getting set up to where the only resolution is price.
Yeah, exactly. And at this rate, it's only going to last about another 5 months until London runs out of silver. That's like unbelievable. So
right, wow.
We will see. We will see what happens.
Yep.
Why so many conspiracy theories in silver markets? I don't know. Maybe because silver daily price data is total clown world. So look at this chart here. You can see the blue line is exploding. Let me show you what they are. So the red line is the New York Silver Open. Okay, so that's the opening price of silver in New York. No big deal. However, the blue line is the New York Overnight Silver Index. Basically, what would happen to the price of silver outside of the New York market hours. So
yeah, if it was only traded when the COMEX was closed.
Yeah, if it was only traded when the COMEX was closed, look at the price of silver. It would be absolutely shooting up. Almost no pullback after 2011, just sideways and then up to the moon. It would be at $382 per ounce right now.
Wow.
So
triple digit silver.
Exactly. So it kind of seems like
inevitable for years.
So. Kind of seems like there's price suppression happening in New York, and that could be why all the silver is mysteriously flowing from London to New York to keep the supply, feasible to maintain the price suppression.
So this is making silver undervalued right now. It is that spring being compressed. Now you add the short position to that and everything else that we've been talking about here, we are set up for an explosion. And that $380 silver is not a ridiculous price. People, when I say triple digit silver for years and years and years, I've been called a nut by a few people, mostly people sort of entrenched in the industry. But when you look at the fundamentals underlying silver, it is inevitable.
I agree with you, and I'm not the only one. Eric Sprott here, the one and only Eric Sprott, says silver is going to skyrocket. $250 to $500 silver is entirely possible. He said this within the past week. So 382 is like smack dab in the middle of that. Totally possible.
I watched that interview, and he does cite two other people that are saying like 300 and 500. And so it is, more and more people are sort of jumping on this bandwagon of triple-digit silver is going to happen. And I believe it absolutely is, and I've been saying it for a long time.
Yeah, the price suppression is going to unwind, and we're seeing that happen. The markets are breaking, and there's only one way price can go up quickly. So another thing I wanted to look at here is the gold-silver ratio, just to see, because we make the case for gold quite frequently on this channel, and the case for silver, as you can see, is much more compelling. The gold-silver ratio right now is hovering around 90, around 88, and this chart only goes back to 1995. So it kind of looks like it's in a normal range, slightly elevated, but kind of looks normal. Maybe it would return to about 60. However, when we look at a long-term chart of the gold-silver ratio, look at this. Look where we are. We're up here. I just updated this.
This is 300 and how many years?
Almost 350, maybe 340 years.
Okay, so 340 years, and you calculated the number of weeks that out of that 340 years that silver was above 90, basically an even greater bargain than it is today. you came out with what? 0.88% of the time, silver has been this much of a bargain?
3 years out of 339 years. Mm-hmm.
Right. And Dan goes, wow. So that is 0.88% of the time for 16 generations. That is, it just shows you that this is not just a once in a lifetime opportunity, but a once in 16 lifetimes opportunity. Silver isn't just the new gold. Silver is better than gold.
That's right. Get your hands on it.
Thanks for watching. Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Mike.
Next time.
Hey everyone, I'm Jeremy Saffron. Welcome back to Kitco News. Well, there's an undeniable shift happening in the U.S. and global financial system, one that ties directly to gold, the United States dollar, and of course the future of economic stability. In recent months, record amounts of gold has been moving into the U.S., fueling speculation that something bigger is at play. Now, the sheer volume of gold transfers, more than 12.5 million ounces since November, is creating tightness in global supply, particularly in London, one of the world's largest gold hubs. Now, this raises urgent questions. Who is buying all this gold and why? Is it private institutions, foreign governments, or is it even the U.S. Treasury itself? One theory gaining traction in the U.S. government is preparing for a full-scale audit of the gold reserve in Fort Knox, an event that could reshape global monetary systems here. Now, high-profile voices such as Elon Musk, Senator Rand Paul, and former presidential candidate Ron Paul, who we recently had on this show, well, they've all demanded a full independent audit of Fort Knox, which has not been inspected for more than 50 years. Now, Musk even suggested live streaming the audit to ensure full transparency. Well, with all these developments, what does it mean for the future of the U.S. dollar, global trade, and of course, gold itself? Here to break it all down is Peter Grandich, a veteran in financial markets. Peter has managed hedge funds, advised major institutions, and authored Confessions of a Wall Street Whiz Kid. He's also the founder of PeterGrandich.com, a leading voice in the gold and commodities space. Peter, welcome back to the show. Great to see you.
Good time to be interested in gold.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And it's funny because there's still a lot of news outlets that are not covering the moves in gold. But of course, let's do it here and start with something a little bit critical. Right now, the U.S. government officially values its gold reserves at just under $45 an ounce, a number that hasn't changed in decades. Meanwhile, spot gold trades nearly $3,000 an ounce, making new records in the open market. Why hasn't the U.S. adjusted the book value of its gold holdings here, Peter?
Well, I think it's part of the fact that finally business people are at the helm at the moment at this country. Let's face facts. Donald Trump was a business person first, long before he was a politician. And Musk, I think, to me, Musk is the Einstein of business for the 21st century. And he's just a phenomenally man with such brilliance and, be able to do so many different things. I still can't believe they land that rocket back onto the pad each time.
Yeah.
About what that takes. So I think that's the one reason. And I think also there was a plan to monetize as much of the asset base that they can because the debt is so huge. And obviously, with gold being valued at the books at $42, it doesn't make any sense to keep it at that level. So I find it interesting. I will say this, when you talked about an audit and even having it live, as long as it's not Geraldo Rivera going to open it up, because the last time he did that, nothing was there, and we don't want to see that nothing is at Fort Knox.
Yeah, we definitely don't want to see that. We will revisit this one, but I'm curious, there's a lot of this talk. We've seen it this past weekend, on X. Elon Musk obviously giving a lot of attention to it as well. Could we see an official revaluation of gold to reflect real market prices at what's making new highs this year?
Yeah, I think that's coming. I think that's part of it. I don't think what people should do, Jeremy, is confuse what's been transpiring up to a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. The serious purchasing by central banks to a few weeks ago had nothing to do with what's happening. This is a separate issue that's taking transpire. Those banks were buying because they were preparing for what they view as an eventual change in the world monetary system. Partly because of what's transpiring with BRICS, and as much as Trump wants to threaten that he's going to break their kneecaps if they continue, I think they will. But this movement is more, I think, related to the U.S. and what it plans on doing with its gold holdings. And therefore, I believe we will get that revaluation. And it makes sense because it does kick in almost $1 trillion of paying down some debt by the higher level of our gold holding. What I don't think is what people should be concerned about, and every once in a while I get an email still about it. Does this mean they're going to sell the gold? I think that's the last choice of theirs, to sell the gold. Look at countries that did and how they're hurting now. Unfortunately, your country, Canada, did it, and I think they would like to have the gold back that they had sold.
Yeah, I think a lot of politicians wishing that they could go back in time here. Okay, let's stick on this theme, because if gold were to be revalued, as you just mentioned, and we talked about this overpowering debt problem in the U.S., could it help stabilize America's debt to GDP ratio, perhaps? Is that part of the plan?
My opinion is this is just a pause. When I hear, there's a lot of good things Trump has done. One thing you can say about Trump, whether you love him or you hate him, what he says he was going to do, he does. Very few politicians after they're elected, percentage-wise, do as much as he's already done for what he said he was going to do before he was elected. But one of the comments that he's made continuously, that eventually this and other things and a Bitcoin reserve, strategic reserve, will somehow eliminate the debt. The amount of discretionary income we would have to suddenly make as Americans to meet all our necessary bills and have extra money to pay down $36 trillion is beyond impossibility. That's why the eventual reset in the world and what central banks are doing, recognizing not just our debt. This is not just a U.S. problem. Large-scale national debt is throughout the Western world and even in China. So it goes to us, it at least makes those of us who pounded the table about gold for the last 10 or 20 years proven correct all along for much lower prices, that it would prove to be the number one asset that people would look to as the debt would get worse and worse.
Yeah, you mentioned that national debt problem there, and it's surpassed its $36 trillion mark. I know the Congressional Budget Office warning that by 2031, almost every dollar of tax revenue could be consumed by interest payments and mandatory spending. Now we're seeing from this last meeting with the Fed, they're now signaling concerns over another debt ceiling crisis. Some officials are suggesting a pause in balance sheet runoff, currently allowing $25 billion in treasuries, $35 billion in mortgage-backed securities to mature monthly. Adding to the uncertainty, Donald Trump has backed a plan from House Republicans to raise the debt ceiling by $4 trillion. But again, negotiations could take months. Peter, how do you see this debt ceiling standoff playing out here?
Well, I wish they get rid of that wording, because 120-something times it hasn't worked. The ceiling has gone through. The problem we have is, you make a very good point, Jeremy. The Congressional Budget Office says that we are going to hit $54 trillion in debt at the rate that we're going at. Well, if you just put a 5% interest rate at that point, we'd be talking over half of what we took in as a nation in our best year 2 years ago, just going to pay interest. We could not operate the rest of the country as we've grown accustomed to. So we also must say that one of the negatives that I find about Trump at the moment is just about everybody is not going to pay taxes, just no matter who you are. Well, how are we going to do all of that and not pay taxes and yet be able to pay this all off? And no one's really asking about that point, because we're in a sense, we're somewhat stunned. I think people are really, some are happily stunned to see how much waste and potential trillions of dollars that has gone out the door. But to believe somehow all that's going to be stopped, put on the right side of the ledger, and then be able to pay such a huge amount of debt off anytime soon, I think is a falsehood.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch these numbers continue to climb on the debt front. And we're also seeing it when we get back to the gold and silver front. We're seeing unprecedented movement of gold from London into the U.S. The numbers are staggering, Peter. We got 12.5 ounces of gold, 40 million ounces of silver have been delivered into COMEX vaults since November of 2024. JP Morgan is reportedly set to deliver $4 billion worth of gold for February COMEX contracts. Meanwhile, in China, banks are continuing to sell out of gold due to overwhelming demand. South Korea Mint has temporarily halted gold bar sales. What do you make of this massive transfer of gold into the U.S.?
I think it's part of this strategic use of gold that Trump plans, but I think it's bigger than that. Now, I must tell you, I've been part of a group for 20 years, and for a lot of those years, a certain person used to call us tinfoil hat folks, because not only did we speak about the manipulation that was going on, which subsequently was proven, but we talked about how much gold has been lent out and lent out multiple times, to the point where if ever that gold was originally called back, it could cause a domino effect. And I believe that's part of it. The good news in all of this, which gold bulls like myself should be well satisfied, is we no longer have the manipulators in the paper market that were basically in London and New York. They're done. They recognize they can no longer just short the paper market and keep it down in the press. Look, even when we have a $30 or $50 down day, years ago, Jeremy, it took weeks, sometimes months to make that up. Now we make it up in hours or a day or two. So the physical demand and the physical gold market now has finally overridden the paper market once and for all. And I think that also is bullish for long-term gold. And the thing that shocks me still is the general financial service industry, at least in the U.S. here, yawns at gold. There's real no interest or holdings yet. And that's why I think the market still has a much further way to go, because we haven't seen the general public involved in the gold market in any major way. No disrespect to what Kitco does and those who are smart enough to be getting people in hundreds of dollars lower, but the vast majority of people in the United States have little or no ownership of gold.
Yeah, go back to this massive transfer of gold for a second, because, as we talk about these hypotheticals, Peter, I mean, who's buying it? Is it the private institutions, foreign governments, or does the U.S. Treasury itself? I mean, it almost feels like the retail investors are sitting this one out.
Oh, they're sitting it out. We know that. We've seen statistics, the GLD, we've seen even the GDX, GXJs, we saw net selling of that through much of 2024. You can still go, and no offense, but if you do waste your time and turn on one of the financial networks here, you'll fall asleep before you see a mention of gold. So I don't believe there's real ownership, certainly on the retail or significant institution. I think this is a combination of gold coming back to be used in a big way through the government, and people who have been short have some real serious problems here who've used derivatives on the gold market on the short side. And I have to tell you something, I'd be less than honest, Jerry, if I didn't tell you that I somewhat enjoy it after all the years of pain that they caused. And now they're starting to feel a little bit what it feels like to themselves.
Yeah, the paper market. Okay, well, there's also, let's go back to this Fort Knox theme. I mean, Peter, there's the growing speculation about an audit. It hasn't happened since 1974. And what you were just talking about now and what we were discussing on the paper market, I mean, is the U.S. reshoring gold that may have been leased out? Could this be part of a quiet plan to backstop the dollar?
Yes, it is. And I would tell you, remember that audit also wasn't a full audit. They kind of looked in one area and they grabbed a couple of bars and said, okay, let's go grab lunch. I think a real full audit of an actual accounting may surprise people. I mean, it always gave the conspiracy people some concern, the fact that you wouldn't want to have people just come in and get it over with. Here, if you don't believe us, here, look. Go take a look, add it up, and see that it's all there. So I don't know if we'll get to that point, but I'll tell you, if there was ever two people that could get us to that point right now, it's President Trump and Elon Musk right now.
Yeah, they're going fast. Peter, you should try covering it. Every day there's a new story to cover. I want to bring more about this analysis, because there was this new thread on X that we found really interesting. It's from financial analyst Matt Smith, and he suggested, we'll show it here. He says, quote, someone with deep pockets is scooping up gold like the U.S. Treasury or Fed. The theory, they're preparing for a full-on gold audit, meaning they're reshoring gold that might have been leased out. Once audited, that gold could form the backbone of a new monetary system. This could signal a seismic shift in the dollar's status and value. We heard you kind of tease about this, but really bust it open for us here. What do you make of this theory? Could an audit lead to gold playing a greater role in the financial system?
Well, we already know this, Jeremy. The central banks who have been major buyers have been buying it on that basis. They weren't buying it for a trade. Who are they going to sell it to?
Yeah.
And this accumulation that's been going on for several years outside of North America was going on because they were prepared for recognizing that de-dollarization is here. It's great what Trump says. I do think he's making a mistake, threatening to break people's kneecaps, basically, if you don't deal with us. That's the very reason those groups have formed, because they felt that that's what's been given to them. I believe he created a great marketing card for the BRICS, but nevertheless, I believe they recognize that. Now I think the U.S. has come to that conclusion, and I concur with a lot of good people who are a lot smarter than me over years said that they demonstrated that gold had been lent out 3, 4, 5 times more than we had. And I think this is assuring up, because let's face it, the people that were doing that was not mom and pops. These were significant financial institutions and players, and they have a huge problem here now if that's the case. Listen, gold's up tremendously in the last couple of years. They haven't had a chance to shore up those shorts in any real manner. And I think this is all coming together, and it be described as a near perfect storm for gold.
It's a hypothetical, Peter, but if a full audit does happen at Fort Knox, there seems to be 2 possibilities here. You know, the gold is there, which could be used to revalue the reserves and strengthen the U.S. financial credibility, or the gold is missing, which could send shockwaves through the global markets. What happens if the Fort Knox audit finds that the U.S. has far less gold than officially reported? What would that do to the trust in the U.S. financial system?
Well, I think it would be tremendous, but I can tell you, all those people that used to talk about 5,000, 10,000, you know, people's crazy numbers on gold that were crazy when I was buying at 1,300, people couldn't believe we can get to 2,000, but that would be, it would be probably one of the biggest ever, something far worse than the 1929 crash. If the United States, remember, world's largest supposedly holder of gold still, doesn't have it or doesn't have anything as nearly as much as it does. I can't even believe, as much as Trump wants to be forward and all, that somehow they have to not let it get to that view, because it would ruin everything else that they're trying to do. But seeing is believing. I mean, if there was ever a chance to have a real audit in my lifetime, this is it right now.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, we're seeing this shore up, as you mentioned. I mean, if all the gold is accounted for, what impact could that have on monetary policy?
Well, I think they're going to just go forward with what they hope they're going to do. It is going to, they're going to remonetize it. He's a smart enough businessman to know why keep an asset on our books that we're only carrying at $42 when we can carry it at current prices, which would give us room to work and use other means to help pay down the debt, or at least pay down deficits to where, you know, we haven't had a balanced budget since Clinton, and even that was a fudged balanced budget. I always tell people this, Jeremy, if you want to start solving problems, pass the constitutional amendment that you can't spend more than you make. If you and I continued like the government does, we'd be out on the street a long time ago. But by and large, that will help ease some of the near concerns about the debt. But the major concerns that all of us had and spoken about these last several years are still here. In fact, if Trump doesn't do some austerity and stop promising almost everybody isn't going to pay taxes, he could actually make the debt worse than it really was.
Yeah, I think about Warren Buffett. I think it's him that says if they can't balance the debt, just don't let them rerun for government. It would kind of solve it fairly quickly. Okay, we'll switch over here, Peter, because while this is happening in the U.S., Russia and China is also making major moves in the gold market. Russia's central banks have dramatically increased its gold reserves, adding over 100 tons in the past year. China has aggressively been buying gold for 15 straight months, adding 225 tons to its 2024 reserves alone. Chinese banks are experiencing extreme shortages with demand outpacing supply. Let's talk about the moves. Are we witnessing a global shift towards gold-backed monetary systems?
Well, we kind of knew that, for those that paid attention, when the BIS made gold a tier 1 investment. That really opened the door for these central banks. And if you think about it, since that time, they became major not only buyers of gold, but they've been divesting themselves of U.S. treasuries. They have sought other alternatives for their reserves. It also plays a role in the BRICS. And whether the BRICS stay a small offshoot group that works among themselves or grows much larger, as some of us, like myself, believe it eventually will, they will have to use something other than a fiat currency in order to show that they're trustworthy and be able to deal with. They've kicked around a couple ideas that will include about 40% in gold and using the other currencies of the countries. But nevertheless, what I think we need to come back to, and I know Bitcoin has stolen the financial media's attention and gold was pushed back to being a relic, but this is what gold has done for a couple thousand years. It's doing the things that a lot of people, including Kiko, have said for years. It's a store of value and a protection of wealth. And that's what it's doing. And now it's being done at a time when people are scurrying to get as much as they can of it, recognizing how useful it really is.
Yeah, you're talking about that scurry. I mean, we just talked about China, Russia. They seem to be kind of, front running this. So, I mean, with all this information, could the U.S. be positioning itself to compete with Russia and China in this regard? Are they a little late to the party, or is that what we're seeing?
There's that talk of that they might do it, or they may recognize that part of this is, listen, I got to take this, that Trump is a shrewd businessman, whether you like him or not, and there's days I like him and there's days I can't stand him, but he's a shrewd businessman, and he may be recognizing that in some way we have to be tough at the moment, but we'll have to not try to beat them, but join them, and maybe there will be a world movement back to a gold-backed currency or some way. But one thing it's demonstrated again and again and again, it's worked for a few thousand years. And that's why people are going to choose something like that versus something that's only been around a dozen or a couple dozen years, is too volatile and too, swings too much and doesn't have the representation that gold has. And that's what I think is transpiring now. The people with real big money, they recognize that gold is going to be their way out and not something else.
Yeah, and some analysts even believe that China is preparing to launch a gold-backed currency for international trade to challenge the dominance of the U.S. dollar. We've seen the de-dollarization trend for the past year. If these movements start to signify, are they going to happen, and could this threaten the dollar's reserve currency status?
Well, we'll find out a few months from now, Jeremy. The BRICS will meet again in the fall. Right now, they're still having more members join. Yes, Trump had said a few things. He said a lot of things about tariffs and taking over countries and all, which I think he's really out of place to do that. But a lot of his art of dealing, that's what he does. He blusters, he sets up a worst case scenario, so that way when you do settle lower, you feel like you got something. And he was glad to get that little part to begin with and all. But I do think gold is showing what we've all said, and it's paid to own it. Lost in all of this, Jeremy, in this millennium, which is now 25 years old, since the millennium began, gold has outperformed stocks and bonds. Yet if you went into the typical financial service firm anywhere in the U.S., you wouldn't find gold in more than 1% of the people's holdings. Yet the things that they own the most, gold has outperformed both of them.
Yeah, fascinating. To your point, Bank of America recently projected that gold could hit $3,500, central banks and institutional demand increases by just 10%, Peter. 10%. U.S. household debt hit a record $18 trillion in the last quarter of in the last quarter of 2024, according to the New York Fed. Credit card debt alone hits $1.2 trillion, the highest ever. Let's talk about this, because given the debt crisis, the dollar's volatility, the global gold shortages that we're seeing, should individuals be increasing their gold holdings now? Is it too late to get in, or is there still room for a substantial upside?
I think a lot of people will act when there's a fear of missing out. I think when it becomes clearer what will be transpiring with this gold and why it's been moved here, even if the price is higher, people will be more comfortable about buying it because it will become more of a general talking point. Most people are followers. Most people don't lead. And I think that's what it will need. But understand this, and this is a very good point. When I entered the business 40 years ago, and 40 years ago, the stock market was viewed as one of the last places you should invest. For 27 years, it was stuck between 700 and 1,000, Jeremy. And a guy named Robert Prechter Jr., who no one knew at the time, came out and predicted that the Dow was going to go to 3,700. And people were scratching their heads in the early 80s. 3,700. It's never been over 1,000. No one could imagine it could go to 3,700, yet to 40-something thousand 40 years later. The same is about the gold price right now. Most people can't imagine, it really can't go much past 3,000. It used to sell just 800. We have no idea what that could be about because there's not as much of it as much as what people could want of it. Look what the buy-in has done so far to it. So I wouldn't put any top number on it. Yeah, you could pick numbers for short term, and 3,000 is a round number. But remember, this is all new all-time highs. There's no real significance because we've never been here before. But don't think it just can't go higher because just things can't. Because that's what people thought about the stock market for a few decades, and yet it went up, 30, 40 times the level that it traded for a lot of years.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I mean, a year ago at $2,000 gold, we were excited. Here we are edging towards 3,000. I know we don't have a crystal ball here, Peter, but where do you see it at the end of this year, considering all the things we talked about today that's happening in the market that's still being underreported?
Well, Jeremy, if you use a crystal ball, the only thing you end up with is a lot of broken glass at the end of the day. So it's a best educated guess by us. I think this is really powerful. I think it's two different forces, both going for two different reasons to own the same thing. And that's why that price still has some substantial upside over the rest of the year. A lot of things could impact that. A big hiccup would suddenly be if Trump can't have the free leg that he's basically having now to do these things and all. But I also think, like I said, I think we're going to see that the bricks are real. They weren't damaged. And their combination and those part of the world buying gold. Asia, reports of people in stores in China on weekends are shopping for gold like you'd be shopping for food. So I just think there's still a lot of good things happening, and we don't have neither the general public or the so-called mainstream financial service industry behind it. It's when those people are talking about it on a regular basis, that'd be a good time for you and I to talk again about maybe it's time to take our profits.
That's what we'll be doing. I have to ask you before we let you go, though, Peter, I saw your latest post. I was watching your latest interviews. Fairly bullish on the mining industry. I mean, again, an industry that hasn't gotten a lot of eyeballs with the shiny things out there giving larger returns. But with all this free cash flow some of these large miners have, any tips for viewers on where to put some money during this ride?
Well, they're printing money. That's the way I can describe some of the gold producers. And for their future growth, they're going to use their currency, their stock. I think we're going to see a dramatic increase in M&A, not only among themselves, but as they go down the food chain to an industry which is still hurting, still struggling to get into a bull market. It's not there yet, the junior resource market. But I think once that starts, and one of the ways I think it's going to start is when a couple of these fairly big companies merge. I'm speculating just an IAM Gold, Agno Eagle type of merger. Right. I think that's going to open the door, and suddenly people are going to look and see these juniors that is, a lot of juniors right now, their gold in the ground is still being valued only between $10 and $40, and gold's hitting 3,000. Once that turns and the people look at it in a meaningful way, then there's going to be a rip-roaring bull market. I don't think we're too far away from that. But if you asked me that 2 years ago, I would have told you that same thing. So I had to point that with caution.
Right. Yeah. No, makes sense. That's interesting. So M&A starts kind of taking play. Are companies just using their free cash flow, or are they using their paper, their stock for some of these deals?
Well, they're going to the free cash flow is going to create their values of their stock. I mean, look at IM Gold, just as an example. 18, 24 months ago, people were counting 8, 9, and thought 10 they were out. Now they've made a dramatic turnaround. One of their key mines have turned around, and now their stock has gone up 3 or 4 times from that. Those type of moves at a time when they pay down a lot of their debt, not just them, but a lot of others, and have so much free cash flow, they're going to look around, and quite frankly, it's a shopping list for them. There's so many smaller, mid-sized companies as well as juniors whose valuations are so incredibly low. It's just going to be too hard to pass, and that's when we're going to see them step up. And once it starts, it'll roll real fast. It's not something that's going to gradual. It's just like a log jam. When they pull that one log out, then the rest of it's going to flow with it.
Yeah, I mean, the market's cyclical for sure. So we're going to see, you know, some of these juniors, some would say that some shouldn't exist. I mean, we've seen a lot of them come to fruition in the past few years, hoping for that bull market. The ones that are, you know, out there succeeding, going to be an interesting year for them, Peter?
Yeah, if I had my wish, there's a lot of these juniors that are lifestyle companies. They're really just a way to live for the people running it and all. I've heard it said, and I don't disagree with it, if hundreds of these little juniors disappear, to be better for all the rest of us. But it's still such a small market cap that any real money that flows into this is just going to drive that whole market dramatically higher. And it has every other ingredient it needed now. Everything but the juniors have moved. And now with the next few quarters, think about this, Jeremy. You're going to see very little earnings increase on General Wall Street. One of the areas people are going to see suddenly is, wow, these gold mining companies, look how much better their earnings are. That'll flow money in that normally doesn't play that market, and that's what will kick it off, in my opinion.
Yeah, wild. Well, we're looking forward to it. Peter Grandich, of course, author, commentator, analyst, joining us. Thanks for this, Peter. Always a pleasure to see you. And as you mentioned, when we have a little bit more on these stories, we're going to have you on for a little update.
Thank you, Jeremy. God bless you and Kitco.
You too. Appreciate your time. And for those watching, what do you think is really happening? Do you believe the U.S. government could be preparing for a gold re-evaluation? Or is this just another cycle in gold's long history? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. For all of us here at Kitco News, I'm Jeremy Saffron. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
約束だ。なんでそんなに嫌そうなんだ。忘れるなよ。視界に背いた奴はろくな死に方しないぞ。もちろん約束したからには有言実行だ。仲間を信じろ。これもじっちゃんの言葉だぞ。とにかく今日がモッキンバードの生まれた日だ。お次は生かしたシンボルを考えないとな。
Welcome to another video from explainingcomputers.com. This time I'm going to talk about the future of the desktop tower PC. Personally, whenever I think about a computer, I still first imagine a large case fitted with a motherboard and drives and other components. But I'm also aware that due to changes in technology and the rise of mobile devices, that the tower PC may soon be an endangered species. Tower PCs have been around for a very long time. Indeed, if you owned a personal computer over 30 years ago, the chances are it was about the same size, roughly the same form factor as this modern tower. Admittedly, 30 years ago, your computer might have been placed horizontally rather than vertically on the desk, and almost certainly it was beige rather than black. But the basic size was roughly the same as this modern tower PC. And yet today, as we all know, people are far more likely to own a smartphone or a laptop than a tower PC. And to give ourselves a feel of this, we look across to the data for how people view this YouTube channel. We discover that only 50% of views are now on desktop and laptop computers combined, with the other 50% attributed to a phone, TV or tablet. More broadly, if we examine this data from Pennyless, we see that over the past 10 years, laptops have constituted an ever-increasing proportion of traditional computers sold. And of course, in the past few years, not all of the desktops in this chart would have been Tower PCs. Having established that the desktop no longer dominates, let's turn to the specific fate of the Tower PC. What we have here is pretty typical. This is based on a standard called ATX, Advanced Technology Extended, that was introduced in 1995. And ATX itself was a development of an earlier standard called AT, introduced by IBM in 1984. So the de facto standard for PC form factors hasn't really changed for the best part of 40 years, although of course what's inside the case has changed a great deal. If we look back to an early AT motherboard, I've got one here. One of the things that strikes you straight away about an early board like this has got a 386 processor. One of the things that strikes you is the lack of onboard connectivity. We've only got one connector on this motherboard. It is here, it is a keyboard connector, and therefore if we look inside an AT PC case, we discover a lot of expansion cards to provide all of the connectivity. And we also discover a power supply at the back, and at the front a stack of drives, including one drive for reading and writing a floppy disk. Now, since the transition from the AT to the ATX standard, all motherboards have had an input-output and I/O panel. So, if we swizz around this tower, we find its I/O panel on the back. There it is, provides lots of connectivity, USB ports, audio jacks, an Ethernet port for connecting to a network. Pretty much all of the connectivity on many Tower PCs is on the I/O panel, which is part of the motherboard. And because it's part of the motherboard, it means you don't have to have a lot of expansion cards inside the case. And indeed, many Tower PCs today will have no expansion cards inside them at all. And the ones that do have expansion cards probably have just one card, which is a graphics card for if the PC is used for gaming, high-end video editing, things like that. The other big change that's taken place across the past 5 or 10 years has been a reduction in the number and the size of the drives inside the average tower. Clearly, the floppy drive has now gone the way of the Dodo, the floppy drive is now extinct, and even optical drives aren't as common as they used to be, although this PC still has a DVD drive. And even hard drives are becoming less common inside Tower PCs because of the rise of SSD storage. And today it's now not that uncommon to find a Tower PC that doesn't have a floppy drive or an optical drive or a hard drive because it only uses SSDs for its storage. And that storage might be on 2.5-inch SSDs like this, but it might all be on M.2 drives, tiny little SSDs like this, which plug directly into a computer's motherboard. Now, one of the big consequences of the fact we've got fewer and smaller drives in our Tower PCs and fewer or no expansion cards is that there's a lot of wasted space inside the case. Indeed, in the average tower today, there's probably more empty space than there is space occupied by useful components. And it's therefore not a surprise we're seeing a rise of the small form factor, the mini form factor desktop PC marketplace, with devices like this able to offer all the computing power that many users require. To get a taste of where things are likely headed, we just need to look to Apple. So if we go across to the Apple website, here we are, we can see that the product range starts to be listed with the laptop computers, but it then moves across to the desktops, the first of which is the iMac 24. And as we can see as this loads in, this is a desktop PC integrated into a very thin monitor. Moving across, we then get the Mac Mini, another very small computer, as we can see in the picture here, although we can scroll down for an even better picture. There we are. You can see the size of the Mac Mini relative to the keyboard. And then after the Mac Mini, the third desktop range is the Mac Studio. Recently launched in Power Stations, it says there. That gives us one picture of it, if I can scroll properly. Let's scroll down though for a better image to give us a better idea of the size. There we go, we can see it relative to the size of the monitor here, and the Mac Mini and the Mac Studio both have a footprint which is less than 20 centimeters or 8 inches square. All of the desktop Macs we've looked at so far also use one of Apple's M1 ARM processors, which have the CPU, GPU and RAM integrated on a single component. This allows Apple to deliver small, powerful desktop computers that are also highly energy efficient. Indeed, it's not until we go across to the Mac Pro, the last of the list here, there it is, that we find a tower form factor computer. There we are, there's the Mac Pro, if we go down there we are, clearly this is a tower Mac. And the Mac Pro is currently still based on an Intel Xeon processor and has a starting price of $6,000. So, for the majority of Mac users, the tower desktop form factor is already extinct. Back in the realm of IBM-compatible computers, Intel has for some years sold very small desktops called NUCs, or NUCs. NUC stands for Next Unit of Computing, and as we can see if we scroll down on this page, you can purchase a NUC either fully assembled or as a kit which can be customized with some of your own components. Most NUCs are 117 by 112 by 54mm in size, or 4.6 by 4.4 by 2.1 inches. A wide range of processors are available, with some NUCs in this very small form